that taken care of. And thankful and grateful for you all being on today. Facebook is ready to go. Just waiting for me to go ahead and press yes for it to be able to go. And trying to get the podcast up and going. And then we'll get into everything today. So thank you everybody for being on all these platforms. We really appreciate you as always. And our goal today, our mindset today, our thought process today is to ensure that we are continuing through kingdom mindset and kingdom psychology to get us closer to what the Most High wants us to be. Amen. All right. Just try to get the podcast on it that we can get started with all this great stuff that the Most High has for us. Mm. And like I said, please pray for me. I am definitely tired. A lot of stuff we've been doing and taking care of and traveling and emotional issues and all types of stuff. And whenever you're ready to go to the next level, it's always just a lot that comes with it. So we'll go ahead and get started now. Looks like we got everything ready to go. Looks like we're doing all right. Okay, so podcast is going prayerfully. I've been trying to make me restart 7, 8 times each time lately, but we'll go ahead and get started. And let's go ahead and just make sure we share this to all the groups on Facebook so people can find us at later on. I think we've got everything on here, right? Alrighty, I think we're ready to go. So thank you to everybody on all the platforms. We appreciate you. I am doing my best to hang in there. As I said, I am very tired. We have been doing a lot of travel, and we're thankful and grateful to be in the position that we are in, and to be in front of you all one more again. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in His authority that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. And so today we are going to be doing a Q&A session, and that's what our focus will be on Q&A, specifically on what we've been talking about with the 12 pillars of wisdom. However, there's little things here or there you'd like to talk about, or even some type of world issues, things of that nature. I know that we are hyper focused and hyper, centered around, in some people's estimation, around making sure that we are talking about a specific topic. So if you need us to talk about something, feel free. If you're on TikTok, can you let me know if you hear me or not? Because I have a weird setup here for those that are on TikTok. So just let me know if you can hear me. But hello, Tamika. How you doing? I think you were first on. Hello, Dawn and Brother Clem, Sister Barbara, Sister Betty, my wife, the Honorable Maya. Bloom and Flourish is on. And we always give all honor not only to the Most High, but we give all honor to the Most High for my wife, Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can find her on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest. And remember that the tincture of the month is I Am Renewed. And we're thankful and grateful for each and every one of you for being on today. Shalom Butterfly Effect. Grand Rising Christine, Anthony, Minister Select Sonia, everybody who's on. Let's see. Butterfly Effect, Minister Tamara, Minister Anais, Sister Sharice. Um, oh, thank you. Yeah, we might. Yeah, we. I don't know if we'll cut it short per se. We got to get ready to get some stuff done and travel and things of that nature. But we will definitely do our best today. Hey, how you doing, Jay? Um, was it Deja? Actually behind on sending you something that needs to send you. But Henry, how you doing? Sister Tracy, if I didn't say so already. So yeah, so we're going to be doing Q&A concerning what we've been talking about, which is the 12 pillars of wisdom. And so if there's any questions you guys may have, how you doing? I see Sister Naya on. If there's questions, comments, or concerns you guys may have, just let us know. You can do so if you're on TikTok by putting in the Q&A box or the chat. You can put in the chat on Facebook, YouTube, or even on the podcast, and we will do our best to get to you ASAP. And there's a lot to try and catch up on, review, etc. But feel free to let us know what it is that you like to talk about, and we will definitely speak on those things. We are specifically, specifically as far as 12 pillars of wisdom, remember that we are talking about a domain, and that which is wise goes inside of, right? And so just like a kingdom it has to be worthy of a king. It has to be a domain worthy of a king going inside of. If you're talking about a queendom, it has to be worthy of a domain. The domain rather has to be worthy of a queen being able to go inside of. So when we're talking about a kingdom, or radach, when we're talking about an establishment, a kingdom, an establishment, a government, a country, we're talking about way more than just a place that you put your feet in, or we're talking about way more than just how many times that you pray or what words you use to pontificate. We're talking about more than just how many hallelujahs that you say. And thanks for being on. I see what Leak and Grand Rising, Sister Deborah, how you doing? Zion, Rhonda, everybody popped up on the podcast. I didn't even catch y'all. Come on. welcome. Thanks for coming in, popping in. So when we're talking about these things, we're talking about something very specific, and we're talking about something as far as what's necessary to be able to have us hold in once again hold in things that are wise. And a lot of us are trying to speak on wisdom, and we're not necessarily in a place where we have a domain that can hold anything that is wise. Shalom, Lily, how you doing? So we're talking about wisdom in these 12 pillars that we've talked about so far, leading up to our Q&A session. We've gone through the first 8. The first pillar was once again, we had to put something systematically and systemic in place. That means on purpose, you got to put a system in that will continue to move on and on, whether you're there present or not, whether you are awake or not, whether you're it's like having habits. Whether you're aware of what you do or not, there's something you're going to do just because you do it all the time, right? So you have to put some things in place culturally that are going to be the same. Then after that, we talked about knowledge, being intimate with something to the point to where it bears fruit. If you know something, then you know something enough to be able to teach it and also have it bear fruit. Then after we went to knowledge, we went from knowledge to being a game changer, right? What are you doing that changes the game? Yo, hold on one second. Got something weird going on in the house. Hold on. All right, sorry about that. Had to check on something. Interesting start to today. Interesting. I don't know what that was, but okay. Praise y'all that I saw it in advance. Sorry. Where was I? Where was I at? Oh yeah. So we're talking about knowledge as be something you're knowledgeable. Third is going to be a game changer. So first has to be systematic and systemic. Secondly, then we have to look at it as far as not only is it systematic and systemic, but also is it something that is knowledge that you know, knowledge, right? Then after that, the third is a game changer. What are you doing that changes the game? And are you willing to deal with what comes with being a game changer? Do you have an environment that you can go into that once you change the game, you continue to change, you can continue to change the game on your own rules, or the rules and regulations that you've discovered that the game can be played at, even when others will try to do whatever they can to deny you the right to be able to play the game. All right. Then after that, we talked about being redeemed, redemption, which really literally means to reconsider. So, are you able to reconsider things through the proper lens and through the proper prism? Then also after that, we talked about vision, purpose, and value. Right? Do you have the right vision? Do you have the purpose that you live in every day to get to what it is that you envision? And then do you put the right value on it? After purpose and value, we got to a place where we said, all right, we have to get to a place where we comprehend. Um, I'm missing one. Somebody remember for me what we get to? We got vision, purpose, and value 5. I'm trying to do 7 and 8 in my head, but it really should be 6 and 7, right? Or did we only get to 6 and 7? So 7 is etymology, or 6 is etymology. Okay, so then we stopped at 8. Okay, my bad. All right. Okay, cool. All right, so 6 is etymology. Etymology is not eteos, which is the study of the truth or the true meaning of the word. We might call it a definition today, but then it's 6 is etymology, etymos, etymos, which means the study of what the truth comes out of. So you can't interpret something if you don't know the culture, the person, what they meant at the time, the age, where they were geographically, et cetera, et cetera. When that was made up, what do all those things say about that word you're using? A lot of us are using a word without context, but you can't use a word, preach a word, speak a word, write a word, et cetera, if you don't comprehend the proper culture surrounding said word. And then finally, then we get to a place where we stopped yesterday, which was eschatology. Eschatology is not the study of the end times, right? But eschatology is actually the study of what is last. I'm missing something. I'm missing something. What am I missing? I'm missing something. I feel like I'm missing something. You know what? I can look. I can just look it up real quick. Let me see what I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know what it is, but I'm missing something. Hold on one second, y'all. I'm just gonna look in my. I can just. That's the great thing about recording these. I can just look at what we recorded and see what's up. Because something's not quite right. I either skipped something. Okay, and then yesterday, sorry. That's right. We did do 8. I was trying to make 8 number 6 in my mind. 8 is we did go over cultural appropriation. That was yesterday. All right. What is cultural appropriation? Now that we comprehend that, what is that based off of all these things now? All right. There we go. So number 1, systematic and systemic. Number 2, knowledge. Number 3, game changer. Number 4, redemption. And we asked the question over and over again with that, how do you deem it once you've been reconsidered? Number 5, vision, purpose, and value. Number 6, etymology. Pillar number 7, eschatology. Pillar number 8, cultural appropriation. All right, there we go. That's what it was. All right, so I knew we did 8, and I was trying to figure out what we did. All right, there we go. So now, with that being said, today is Q&A, and we'd like to leave it up to you all as far as what you'd like to discuss or how you want to discuss it, what you feel is best to go over, et cetera, et cetera. And so, is there any questions, comments, and concerns about how we can use wisdom? We can, and with this being the topic that it is, we can flow in different ways with this. So it might be a verse on a scripture, or I'm sorry, a question about a verse in scripture, a question about how do we use this in marriage, a question about how do we use this in business, sovereignty, the list goes on and on. So we'll go ahead and leave this portion up to you guys. It's gonna, I'll try and stall for a little bit, but does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns? We have all these different platforms. Thank you so much for being on. I will try my best to get to everybody, whether you're on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, or the podcast. We appreciate you. So let's get into, let's see. So first question, what does delay mean? What does delay mean? Delay, as far as you were taught that it means to open. So delay is an interesting word. Just off the top of my head, we can look up some stuff on that and try to apply it to wisdom and things of that nature. Um, and thank you, Minister Tammer, for that reminder. Please be patient with me. There's a lot of platforms going on at the same time. When we're talking about delay, first of all, remember anything with DE in front of it is saying that basically you're like deconstructing it or you're moving away from it or doing some stuff like that, right? Delay. So if you lay something down, or you would lay down some bricks, or you would lay down a foundation, or if you were to, you know, lay down your burdens, right, to lay it out is something where we're basically displaying it. We're putting it out before us. We're putting it out before others. We're setting it aside. We're setting it down. If we were to just go off the basic and eteos of it, not even the etymology yet, and just study what the truth within that word is. We're dealing with laying something down. So really, to delay something is to hold off on what it is that we're going to lay out, right? Even wisdom wise, right? Um, Even wisdom wise, right? I see you, Deja. I got you. So to delay something is really, I should be laying it out, but I'm not going to lay it out. I'm actually going to do things anti that would actually cause me to not lay it out. Right? It's a purposeful act. It's an action. It's a verb. So the verb is to lay, right? But so I'm going to do things against laying these things out. And a lot of times, once again, we delay things as far as wisdom and things of that nature. We delay the progress of what the Most High has. Sometimes we even call it things like procrastination. Procrastination, we think procrastination only as the noun, right? Which is a person, place, or thing, but that's the person or the place or the thing that we've arrived at or are using now due to what we have done as far as procrastinating. To procrastinate is the verb. So, like, to procrastinate is basically to delay. That's a way of delaying. You know, you're supposed to do this. You have a feeling, you have a word in you, you got a book in you got a business idea. However, because you don't really believe in it or put that proper um, value towards that vision and purpose, right? Pillar number 5, vision, purpose, and value. A lot of times we will procrastinate and we get to a place of everything is dealing in procrastination. So it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult whether it's hey, well, I got a family, this and that, or whatever, I'll get to it later. That's a way of delaying. That's a way of sometimes even saying delaying the inevitable. Because if you have a gift or a calling, at some point, if you've been blessed with something, you must comprehend that at some point you're what you've been blessed with to give others, it's going to come up. How you doing, Sis Beverly? How you doing, James? At some point it's going to come up to where somebody's going to need that gift or that talent to be able to come up and to be executed in. And if the world doesn't get to see what you have, then you'll delay it, right? But we can do something like this. Let's look up the modern definition of delay, right? Just to make sure that we've answered that part correctly. And then we'll just do some etymology real quick. So delay is a verb. So they'll say noun as well. Um, Noun says it's a period of time by which something is late or postponed. I'm not really with that one, but that's what they say as a noun. But as a verb, it's saying make someone or something late or slow, right? You're on purpose, creating to create. You're making something, you're forming something that will cause you to be off track, which is why habits are extremely important. Um, so culture is always going to lead to habits. Culture leads to beliefs, and beliefs will lead to emotions, and emotions will lead to feelings, and feelings will lead to mood, and mood will lead to the effort or energy that you put into ultimately your habits. And that those habits either are you keeping the same culture or you creating a new culture, or sliding in somebody else's culture. So the goal is to try not to delay as much as possible. Now, if we look up the etymology of delay real quick, um, I don't know if it's really going to add much to it. Not really. Yeah, there's not really much is going to add to what we're talking about. Um, it's obviously a Latin word. It's an old French word as well. I'm not sure if they pronounce it the same way I'm pronouncing it or not. Probably not. But Yeah, basically we're dealing with the same thing, in which that's what they used it for in ancient times. You know, you're basically creating a situation in which you won't go through. If somebody's saying that it's to open a door, I'd have to see if that's they're saying that's somebody else's language. Because it could be something in a different language that I'm just not aware of. So, um, but to delay something, I would say, in a sense, you could say it's to open the door to something else rather than, door number one is what you're supposed to get done, but you decide to go through door number two, you delay it. But I really couldn't answer it past that. But great question. As far as the next question that I saw up, which was what is Salah? Salah, or you'll see Selah. Selah is usually how it's spelled out. So people usually say Selah, but it's Salah, Samek, Lamed, Che, and it means to pause and to think about. So when it comes to wisdom, matter of fact, the book of or the divisions of Psalms that we write or that we listen to, Psalms, we'll see that there are a bunch of places where it says Salah. Um, it's telling you to pause and think about it. Matter of fact, it's not only to pause and think about it, it also means that musically speaking, because a lot of the song would be songs. And so it's saying musically, when they're singing the songs, or there's songs that they have, we don't really do that much of this anymore with praise and worship music, or with choir music or things like that. However, it used to be, even when I first got into playing church music, and I played church music before I started even going to church. But it used to be that you would play music or whatever, and everybody be singing and stuff, and then they'd have basically this interlude where it was nothing but music playing, no voices on it, nobody was screaming the whole time over it, nobody was singing and doing all the stuff over it. It was just like, we're going to let the music speak, because music itself speaks. It's a language, it's part of the culture. So we would just let the music speak. And so when you see in the psalm, it says Salah, is actually saying that sometimes it's literally saying the music is going to keep speaking here. And we want you to pause and think about the lyrics while still flowing in the spirit musically. Um, so a lot of stuff is not, we don't use ancient wisdom a lot anymore, even in songwriting. So a lot of times we don't even think about that being something that we should, you know, have in our repertoire, to actually write out songs or do things and have something in our life that there's an interlude. Matter of fact, it's really coming off conceptually and contextually and culturally the same type of mindset that we use when we talk about Shabbat. We go through all these things. We're living life. We have all these different things we have to do. Then all of a sudden we come up to where we need to rest inside of that which has already been done, and pause and think about what we've done and regather ourselves to go to the next level. So when somebody in the comment section, or if I ever say Salah, all we're really saying is, hey, now's a great time. They're sometimes even suggesting, or sometimes they're saying for themselves, like, yo, like, I need to pause and think about it, right? Or they're saying we should take time to pause and think about it. That's all they're saying when they say that. Can we do a series on the Apocrypha? Sure. Well, I don't know if it's going to be the Apocrypha straight through, but we are going to have some stuff where we're definitely going to be talking about the Apocrypha very soon. I don't put too much Apocrypha in what it is that we say. I will definitely admit that. Although if you look at it, 66 books versus, a lot less. What are we talking about math wise? Something like a fifth, somewhere in there of the books, one to the next, even though it's all supposed to be the same word. So you can see why it's not percentage wise that much, but I'm very careful on certain things, especially in the beginnings of things. And a lot of this stuff we do is, as much as we think it goes extremely in depth, we are very much so surface level on some of these things. Thanks for being part of the community, Barbara. I see you on there. Hello, Purple. Amen. Seal off, pause. No problem. Any other questions, comments, or concerns concerning wisdom, the series, or anything that applies? Like I said, this series allows us to be very broad, even in the Q&A. So any questions, comments, concerns, this is where we give you guys a chance to ask the questions or whatever, especially, get some in now. By the way, as a reminder, those who are with us and are Patreon members, we'll have something for you all as well very soon. Or we'll have the live today just for you all as well. Got a lot of different things on our plate today. And because of our traveling and things like that, I'm not sure if I'm going to have everything that we need concerning class tonight. Hopefully we will, or it might just be a lot of review. We are going to try and send out those list of words to you guys beforehand. So maybe you guys will be able to write it out where you are, or we'll be able to discuss it wherever you are. But we'll try to have that stuff in order for you all in a bit. All right, thank you, Anime. We appreciate it. Once again, you come on every day to make sure that you remind us that Yahshua loves us, and He does. Thank you so much. I don't know if you have anything. Well, actually, I guess you have. I don't remember. There's so many names on here. I can't remember who's on who. I know you'll come on every time to make sure that we understand that Yesus and Yesu and Jesus are something that we upkeep. So thank you. Not our culture, but thank you very much. Hello, Dennis. Hello, terrestrial, extraterrestrial. Shalom, chosen generation. Right, let's see. You said you messed with the shirt. Shalom needed. So any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I can go into something else. Thanks for being part of the community as well, Izzy. We see you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns before I guess I don't want to take over Q&A. I'm trying to actually be led in the Q&A. Shalom again, Sister Beverly. How you doing? And James, if I didn't say so already. Sister Ron, you're traveling is stressful. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, Ron. Leek, you said the letter J in the Bible. Is that the question, or is that just a comment? I want to make sure I'm hearing you right and answering correctly. Hello, Kels. How are you doing? Any questions concerning the series of wisdom? Oh, which question? I'm sorry, Sister Betty. You said you don't think I saw which question I did. I definitely did not. And by the way, if I miss a question, that's why we say sometimes it might be best to just go ahead and put it in the Q&A box, because then that way, even if I miss it, I can always go to the Q&A box, even if I can't scroll back. Oh, there we go. Is intuition also a form of wisdom? Hey, Shalom, Chef. How you doing? So is intuition a form of wisdom? I mean, so once again, wisdom is a domain in which that is wise goes in. The question, I guess, is more so like, what is wisdom, or I'm sorry, is intuition wise? Is it wise to follow one's intuition? And I would say that depends on what the person's intuition is based off of, right? So I would definitely say that if you are somebody who's focused on the kingdom, like for example, um, if you come from a background in which your father used to cheat on your mom or something like that, and you are a wife and you get married and your husband does anything that looks like what your father might have done that was positive, but come to find out he was actually using it to do negative things. Your intuition might be misplaced. It might, though, however, be in a great place. Like it might be okay, like try the spirit by the spirit. But if it gets to a place to where no matter what your husband's going to do, that intuition is going to always supersede what actually might be contextually factual. Like the context in which your intuition is coming from, hey, deservedly so. And this husband who's supposed to help to heal you must comprehend that he must be willing to be struck on the cheek, so to speak, that he must be willing not to be slapped literally, but I'm saying figuratively, as far as if I'm gonna get in a relationship with somebody and that's what they grew up seeing, if I do anything close to it, the shadow of death is a monster. It doesn't say, yea, do I walk through the valley of death. It says, yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Right. So a lot of people, right. But it still says, I will fear no evil. I will give no respect to evil. Why? For thou art with me. So if you, once again, it's not about submitting to a husband. It's about submission to a husband. Subman means you submitting to the spirit, or if we want to go some male, some man, right? You're getting underneath a man, but that's not what somebody's telling you. Somebody's saying you're in it. You should be subdued by what the mission, if his mission is righteous. So if intuition says one thing, then even check out your intuition always. Try the spirit by the spirit. Talk honestly about it, see what their results are, things of that nature, right? um Things of that nature. But also to the intuition, if it's based off of, okay, look, it's the shadow, but he keeps showing that even in the presence of his enemies, even if the enemy right now is the enemy of the intuition, he keeps giving blessings and having his cup running over and taking care of the family and doing what he's supposed to do. Well, that's different, right? But a lot of us have things that mess with our intuition. Like we said, how do you deem it? How do you consider it? Is very important. So a lot of us have issues with intuition because sometimes our intuition is based off of, we already have decided somebody's going to be wrong. We've already decided somebody's going to be cheating. We already decided somebody's going to be lying. We've already decided, and it could be something based off of, once again, that's why you should try every spirit by the spirit. So I think it's always based off of, it's wise to see where your intuition comes from. How you doing, Cynthia? It's wise to see where that intuition comes from. Is it culturally sound? Yes, ma'am, Sister Rhonda. You're right. You're right. I might need to take some time or whatever. We might need to set up some days in a row where, others might teach us something to see how we can get that or push that somewhere. Cause I am struggling. I think I'll be all right for this week, but maybe I need to, I think this Shabbat, I'm going to have some help. Maybe we'll see about some other things, but we do have coming up soon where we'll have a lot of people on the staff that are going to be teaching in some areas or whatever. I wasn't able to actually, you know what, Sister Rhonda, thank you for that. I'm praying right now about it. I'm gonna keep praying while we're going over it. We might just have to do some things to make sure that I can have a little rest. We won't stop the lives, or maybe some of the stuff outside the lives, we might have to just take a break on just for a second to allow me to get back on track. I appreciate when you guys remind me to take care of myself. I really do. It doesn't go past me. So thank you for that. I would definitely, now that you say that, my spirit and Holy Spirit's talking to me, and we're probably gonna have to do a couple things, especially because I just have things I need to catch up on, even as far as YLP 83 stuff and some other things. So yeah, we'll see. Y'all pray for us. But yeah, so intuition is definitely something. Getting back to the question, intuition is definitely something that we should look at, and we should realize, and we should think about, and we should recognize is very powerful. Um, Intuition is something that is necessary to speak on. Intuition is something that's necessary to um, to use. And what people like, and really it's culturally, what we're thinking about, because what's intuitive to somebody is not intuitive to another. It's like the difference between somebody has, like, when they say street smarts and book smarts, right? Somebody who's street smart, right? Like if I go to a hood or whatever, I'm looking for certain things because I'm not necessarily like, raised hood or whatever. If you want to go, I don't even know what that really means, but y'all know what that usually means. But I also, but when I go certain places, like for example, if I go to NYC, I'm not going to do this while I'm walking around, because if you lift your head up and you're looking around, they know you're a tourist. So even if I'm going somewhere that I'm not familiar with anymore, because I haven't lived there since I was a child, even though I've visited since, even if I see things that are new to me or whatever, I don't let off on it, because somebody who's a pickpocket or something like that, that's who they single out. Right. But if I use that in the wrong place, right? If I'm in, I don't know, if I'm in Millington or whatever, that might be something somebody's looking for, but probably not going to be the same thing, because cats in Millington, Tennessee, even though they got stuff they do that's different as far as what they would consider hood, it doesn't mean that that's something that they doing, right? Intuition is always depending on the place that you're coming from. Somebody else though, who's not street smart and just book smart, might not have that intuition, but in the classroom they have intuition that I don't, right? Like, so my book smarts take over when somebody says, something to me like, hey, I don't know, as far as being intuitive, like, let's say, hey, anybody who's a flat earther is an idiot, right? Now that's somebody talking about wisdom, trying to say it's not wise in their domain. And I'll tell them, well, first of all, you got to understand, let's forget even the global cosmology thing, what the Bible says, and that's pretty tough, but just let's even deal with it, which is why a lot of people can't have conversation, because their intuition sometimes they're not willing to actually say, is my intuition something that should be used here? Or do I have different types of intuition? Right? People just go like intuition is something across the board. So they'll just say like my intuition is something I use everywhere. But it's like I can't use the street smart intuition that I would use for like the book smart one. So the book smart one, somebody just goes, oh yeah, everybody who's a flat earther, this and that or whatever. I can't tell them, well, this is this, blah, 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 whatever, because they think in their domain it doesn't make sense. So that intuition is not even going to be applicable, because it's just going to start an argument. However, if I'm talking about street smart or book smarts, and then using intuition in that type of place, or somebody might try to call it intellectual. I hate to do that though, because intelligence is just information, and um, street street smarts cats got it just as much as IQ as book smarts cats do. They just use different info in different words, and so somebody who's in charge of the system will say they don't have the same IQ, when the reality is they might have greater IQ because they can survive in situations that other person can't. But let's say like that thing comes up, flat earther, I would say to that person, well, that some people who say they're flat earthers, they're not even talking about what you think they're talking about. Sometimes some people who say they're flat earthers don't even necessarily know what the earth looks like, but they're actually saying that we're anti-Roman Catholicism. They might be saying that we're not into a Greco-Roman civilization, right? They're not even saying necessarily that they believe the earth is flat. They're saying that I go against a system that trends to go in a position to where, it's messed up ever since the Roman Catholic Church, because people don't even know this. They assume that it's always been this way, but it's the Roman Catholic Church that actually started the doctrine that people pick up, where they changed it from being flat earth to being a globe. So the global cosmology is different than the actual Israelite cosmology, and that's something new. That's why they can't figure out how the Kemetic people did what they did, even though we have people alive that are the people who built the pyramids, and we know where they are tribe-wise. We can actually find them. They still have some of the same marks that they tattoo on themselves that were on the side of Egypticos, so what other people would call hieroglyphics. Um, it's still right there. So we still know what these things are, and who these people are. And they've told us that this is how they did X, Y, Z, right? Some of the stuff is now hidden because they don't trust us with information and stuff, especially if you have a Eurocentric mindset. But that stuff is there for us to be able to decipher, to be able to go into, to be able to look at, and to be able to research for ourselves. And a lot of people said that. Okay, Leak, I'm sorry. I just came back to you. I'm gonna come to you with that question about, is there a letter J in the Bible? So we'll definitely talk about that in a second. And forgive me for not coming back to you earlier if you're still on. Appreciate the question. Um, so yeah, so even something like that, like talking about a flat earther, something along those lines. It's like, do you know that a flat earther doesn't always mean that they're saying that the earth is flat? Sometimes they're saying I'm a flat earther because I'm going against the system. But somebody's intuition, if they're in the book smarts, is going to be to say this person is stupid, this person doesn't know anything. And by the way, then you're discounting somebody's belief system. Yeah, you're right. Your intuition discounts it, just throws it out the window, rather than say, can we talk about it and have conversation, and let's see if I'm even correct in assuming why their intuition leads them to that, and why my intuition leads me to something else, right? And said, in that case, you're a flat earther. Yeah. So a lot of people, and I'm somebody that doesn't believe in the global cosmology, because even when people ask me questions like, well, all the other planets around. Well, first of all, we don't really know that all the other planets around. But if you want to assume based off of what somebody painted for you, because you've never seen an actual picture of a planet, you always see a CG model. You've never actually seen, they like NASA admits that they always mess with what you see. So, and they say they do it for scientific reasons. That's their way to get out of it. But even if that's the case, like, I'll be like, well, contextually, if Earth is the only planet that has life on it, and all these planets that you see around it are round, could it be possible that the only planet that has no Earth on it would be the planet? I mean, that has life on it would be the planet that's different than all the other planets. You're trying to just do this thing of all planets are the same, but if all planets can't have life and only one can, then why would it look or act like or do the things that all the other planets do? And I'm not here to argue that point, just trying to answer like contextually factual. The reason why we're having a lot of issues with this stuff is because people aren't being honest about the conversation, and they don't really know what's happening, we don't really know how to have conversation because we're not able to go into context. So intuition is amazing. Women have incredible intuition. My wife will say a lot of things intuitively that it might take me sometime years to get with. I've learned now, I'll just roll with it and then I'll comprehend what she's saying later on, because sometimes her intuition is, you know, it's crucial, you know. Cleaning breath, amen. You said classes can break for 2 weeks. You need to rest. Well, we'll see. It might not be 2 weeks, but it might be a week where I might need to. That's so y'all in y'all spirit feel what I was saying without me saying it. That's kind of what I'm praying about. We might, because or maybe I just do a recording for the classes that I can do in either other. I actually owe you guys a recording for Hebrew characters class yesterday because I couldn't do it. And it took everything. I was knocked out. I think I slept quite a bit and I still didn't, so I need to get back into my nutrients bag and stuff like that. But we'll be there. You said your sister's nursing program is trying to force her to take it. Yeah, so even like with the vaccination thing, that's kind of a flat earth type mindset. Like flat earthers would be like, we're against the system where somebody's trying to force you to take something, you know. You said, are there any scriptures that prove that the vaccine is against our belief? Yeah, the scriptures simply are they, well, first of all, they're trying to change the conversation. Remember that well, I'll get to that because I got to get to the question first about the letter J. So let me go in order, right? But I will get to that. The Tavion, I will get to that. Oh, there's no question mark box today. Interesting. Okay, I have it on mine, but if you guys don't have it, no problem. All right. Um, so, and I see the question about discernment. So give me a second. So I'm gonna answer the letter J. Then I think I got vaccine. I saw, and then I saw the one up about discernment. All right. So the letter J. Let me get back to that real quick. So the letter J. Is there any letter J in the Bible? If you're talking about the original, remember, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. See how this keeps coming up over and over again? When we get to certain series, certain things pop up over and over again that we've been saying for days now. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. What do we wrestle against? First things first, against principalities, then powers, then rulers of darkness, and then wickedness in high places. Right. First things first, that we wrestle against, not against flesh and blood. So the problem is not the person. The issue that we have that causes us to wrestle, go back and forth with each other and others, is the origin. Principalities is the origin. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the origins. If you look at the original language of the Bible, and by the way, how they tried to change everything from Greek. They said half of it was in Greek and half of it was in Hebrew. And then we're like, well, half of it can't be in Greek because the New Testament, even if you believe in Nicolaitans doctrine and you try to believe there's a New Testament and the Old Testament, and we're told not to do that in Revelation chapter 2, verse 12 on. Don't be about that Balaam doctrine, which attacks Israel, and don't be about that Nicolaitan doctrine, which attacks, the integrity of the wholeness of the word. And some Caleb, the music, somebody looked like they were trying to come on live. If you're trying to come on live, let us know in the comment section. If you guys see somebody in the comment section that's trying to come on, moderators, if you can just let me know. I might have just been somebody randomly trying to come on. And but we're talking about Q&A and something like that. But if you want to talk about something we're talking about today, feel free. If I don't know the person, I usually don't just let them come on. It's very rare we do that because I don't know where they're going to take us. But yeah, if we're talking about the letter J in the Bible, you must comprehend that the original language was Avda, which we now call Hebrew through a lot of stuff that's changed over the years where people have changed the language. Even like Igbo people, which if you study on the map, which is where the kingdom of Judah was located in the 1700s, whether they called Kingdom of Yehuda or the Kingdom of Judah or the scattered Israelites. And we know that up until the 1700s, it was on a map clear as day that they were in West Africa. We already know they were in South Sudan. We already know that they were in what we now call Ethiopia. We already know they were in Kemet. We already know that, we know that hundreds of years before that, that Christopher Columbus came and admitted that the Taino people said they were talking to the West African people. And we also know that before he left, he talked about the land of Asheroth, and so did the queen that sent him, and so did the Pope that allowed the queen to send him, right? And so we know that he had to bring a Hebrew interpreter with him, which means that or an Avda interpreter. So everybody else knew. Right, it's not a new thing. There's this weird thing where we act like it's new, but don't forget that just because there's a lot of people who are, or Western Eurocentric society that's always putting out propaganda to tell you how what they want you to believe is better than everybody else, is going to omit a lot of stuff. And a lot of people who are over Hollywood in some of these places are people who it benefits them to tell you, that idiosyncrasies and ideologies that are not factual or not even contextual are what we should listen to, right? So the reality is that there is no letter J. There's not even a just sound in the Bible. So the letter J is something that's off. No matter where you go to look for it. Now people say, well, in Hebrew they say J this and J that and J this. Well, you're talking about modern Hebrew. According to Matthew chapter 5, verse 18, Yahshua himself, he taught us that we should not change the way that the word is written. And we shouldn't change anything as far as the law, we shouldn't change the way it's written, the yod, and we shouldn't even change the most minuscule of measurements of the law. Right. So it really comes from a lot of that is stemming from people trying to change and take on a culture and trying to misappropriate it. That's what we talked about yesterday about cultural appropriation. So anybody who's going to argue on a just sound for anything in the Bible, not just for Jesus or anything like that, but we're talking about language, right? If you're going to talk about the original, there is no letter J, right? Even if you get a 1611 King James version, even though you'll see a lot of people now in the modern original versions, if you get an original version, you won't even see really a lot of letter J's in there at all. But a lot of the original versions, those sort of versions of the original 1611 King James version, a lot of them will have just and justified and all these terms in there. But when you get to Jesus, the name Jesus that you use now, you'll see it doesn't even spell it that way. It spells it I-E-S-U-S because they didn't have a J. So the closest thing they had to that just sound was a yeah. Even up into the 1700s, the original King James version is written in 1611, and they didn't even want people to use it because they felt it actually was a game changer. It opened up wisdom concerning the word for a lot of people. So they didn't even open that up to everybody. They didn't even allow that to happen for everybody. They didn't even want that to happen for everybody. And so they even let people use it to the 1700s. They did their best to dismiss it, even though the king himself wrote it. Or he didn't write it, but he had other people write it. Now, King James, who was black, by the way, if you look up where he comes from, he was what we consider today to be black, African. And his parents were as well, which shows you the royalty piece, right? And don't forget, once again, Moors and people like that who have power and consistency and control. They didn't just all disappear off the face of the planet just because Spain. We act like since when the Spanish won, that was the end of the Moors. The Moors just weren't in Spain anymore. Didn't mean that they didn't have influence. Didn't mean they still weren't building castles all the way in England and France and Croatia and Russia. Don't forget about Gannibal and Gannibal's grandson, who's considered to be the greatest poet in Russian history. Somebody was saying the history of mankind, and actually helped to develop the Russian language. But that letter J, it wasn't original at all. It wasn't. The J sound is not in our language. So anybody telling you J, Jew, Jesuit, all these different things, Jesus, whatever, like those are somebody else putting their culture inside of it and trying to tell you what it is. The closest thing you have to Jesus being mentioned in the Bible is Yesus and Yesu, and they were mentioned when he was on the cross. Pontius Pilate, knowing that he was half man and half, what he would determine to be a deus or deity or God, he decided to say that he was half man, or ye, and half Zeus, because that was the closest he can come up with. So he put his actual name in Hebrew. When you read the Bible, it tells you he put his actual name in Hebrew, Yahshua, King of the Hebrews, right? So Yahshua, Yahshua Malach, was it Yahshua Malach Avda? Then he put in Greek, Yesus, right? King of the Hebrews, and then he put in Latin, Yesu, King of the Hebrews. So that's the closest that we have to being able to say that was there. And even that was something that wasn't used in his name. That was just something Pontius Pilate came up as a nickname. Later on, when people would romanticize the Bible, they would use the nickname that went half man, half Zeus. The same people that will eventually turn this into Sunday, worshiping the sun, Moon Day, worshiping the moon, Tuesday, which is basically talking about the god of war, Wednesday, which is worshiping Odin, Thor's Day, you know, Frida's Day, and Saturn's Day, Saturnalia, right? That type of stuff. Then they would start changing it. That's why you don't say Hakia, which is a firm substance. You actually say firmament, because firmament is dealing with a god who's called Firmament, who came from his mother, Gaia. And Gaia is supposed to be the Big Bang. There was nothing, then there was Gaia, and Gaia had two sons, Neptune and Firmament, and then her and Firmament had children, and out of Firmament and her, then underneath Firmament now are all the babies that were walking around like Titans and things like that lead later on to gods and things like that. And Zeus is dead, and then eventually Zeus, Zeus's dad takes over from the guy who ate all the children or whatever, and then basically Zeus ends up taking over for that person. So it's a lot of convoluted stuff, and it makes its way into the Bible, and we're not aware that that's what's going on with all these conversations and things. Amen. Somebody just asked the question I said I was going to get back to before we got to something else. Oh, we must have had somebody that got muted or kicked off or something. That really messed me up. I'm not saying y'all shouldn't do it. It just messed me up. I was like, what am I trying to find? Okay, the vaccine. Okay, so vaccination, real quick. I won't go deep into this because there are people that'll try and take us off, right? So we'd have to discuss this offline. Maybe we can do something. Matter of fact, well, because that's for Patreon only. I was gonna say maybe we can talk about it in the live this evening. I don't know how we want to do. We'll have to figure out a way where maybe we can talk about it on Zoom. We might even have to have a whole class discussion on vaccination stuff as part of our health stuff. Because we teach natural medicine 1, natural medicine 2, and fibroid cysts. Maybe we can add vaccinations in there. I will say this. There's certain things I can't talk about in the live because they just took down our stuff on YouTube. So they're looking at us. The World Health Organization told YouTube to take our stuff down. So we had years of stuff that was taken down on the YouTube channel we have now. So I have to be very careful with what I say. I would say this. What you need to comprehend more about vaccination more than anything else is law. Law protects your rights. Law does not give you rights. Law protects your rights. There are laws on the books that say that your religion always is going to supersede everything else. You have to be able to write out why it is that you want, right? So you have to be able to confirm, and I know your question was, are there Bible verses? But you have to be able to confirm that what you believe or what you do every day and what you believe spiritually is something that's there. And also really technically you should just be able to say, this is my religious belief, that's it. But now what they do is they try to get weird on you and they try to say, oh, well, is this what you want? This what you want? And there's different ways you can go about it legally. We just simply use terms like this without going extremely deep. The Bible says that your body is a temple. The Bible says that you are allowed to eat certain foods. You're not allowed to eat certain foods. The Bible says that you shouldn't eat blood of any animal or any human being. Put that all together, you already have a case. If I were to just keep it like that. Now, if you want to call, contact, text us, DM us, whatever, and get more information, I can talk more offline about it. But like I said, there are people that are trying their best to stop us at any way they can. So I have to be careful about certain things we put out, online. We'll do certain things offline, but certain things I will not do online anymore, just to make sure that this environment still exists for us as a people until we're able to at some point finally have our own stuff together where we don't have to worry about it, right? I'm still looking into other things, other platforms. Right now I haven't found anything that really gets us where we need to be, but we're still looking at those things. So, but what I will say is this concerning that. It's my pleasure, Leak. What I will say concerning that is that just with that by itself, we have an issue, because first and foremost, the Bible also says, even before that, it talks about free will, right? It tells us that we have free will. So if we have free will, right, then that free will cannot be violated. It's an unalienable right constitutionally. So when somebody says that you must do something, and it's not messing with anybody else's right to be sovereign, or it's not messing with the public, then you have to say, why are you trying to force me to do that? Number one, right? Now, the thing we're fighting for when we're talking about those rights concerning vaccination specifically is we're not fighting to say everybody should not be vaccinated. We're fighting to say everybody should have the right to choose whether they want to be vaccinated or not. Any consequences that come with that, you come with. But as far as us, we believe that we don't want stuff called iatrogenic effects. Effects like side effects, iatrogenic effects, things like that, things that could mess us up. And there's no type of medicine, unless it's natural medicine. There's no type of medicine that gives us iatrogenic effects. We don't believe in taking care of our temple that we should be stabbed. So why would we say that you can stab me in the vein and feed me intravenously? How you doing, Sister Hattie? Shalom. Right? Those are things that we would talk about. Those are things that we would say as far as we don't believe. We believe that if you want to be stabbed, be stabbed. But I have a right. I'm protected by certain things, by certain codes. Even if you want to look up vaccination codes, I won't say the name of it because that's what got us kicked off last time when we gave too much game out on these platforms. But and other people can talk about it, but they won't let us talk about it. So it shows that they're very much so trying to get on us. Nevertheless, though, so we're very mindful. We're very mindful. We take our time. We're very mindful to say, this stuff. But yeah, if you want to talk more about it offline, but yeah, there's scriptures that back up. So if a side effect of something could be a possibility of death. Now somebody will say, which is not true, by the way, but somebody will say, well, 99.99999% of people have survived and only 0.0000001% of people have died. Well, I don't want to be that 0.00001. I have a right to say I don't want that. If you can prove to me that nothing will happen. Now, there's different ways legally you can go about it as well, as far as, okay, you know what, I'll take it, but I'm going to write out this thing that says, if I take it, can you promise me you can actually do this because you are an actual, you have the right to do this. We think we don't have rights, but you can go to the company and say, well, I'll do this, but will you make sure that if you're going to force, or even I'll do your test. Let's say I'll even take your test, but I'll take your test, but you're going to pay me every time I take the test. If I do catch this disease that's going around, you're going to pay me a certain amount of money a week. You're going to pay me $5,000 a week because you said if I did this or whatever, then fine. But if I catch it and then I still can't work, well, then that means that you forced me to do. You not only did you try to force me into a corner, but you know what, I agreed to it. No, so instead of you forcing me to a corner, hey, I agree, and you start doing that, they have to back off. So there's different ways you can go about it. It depends on the company, depends on what's going on. Like I said, I'll kind of leave it there. But scripturally, there's the fact that you have free will, the fact that your body's a temple, the fact that you shouldn't have blood. I put that in there because a lot of these things are dealing with babies and fetus and things like that. Well, if you're dealing with that, then that's blood. Bible says that you should be eating as naturally as possible, as healthy as possible. Well, if that's the case, then we shouldn't have anything that is chemical, right? So if it's not real, right? The body says that we shouldn't that we're trying to be healed of disease, right? That we're trying to be healed of sickness and disease. So why would they put a sickness if they're giving you a dead version of the virus? Why would they give you that? So there's a lot of things that you could talk about, but I'll leave it surface level there. That's about as deep as we can go. Somebody said earlier, are we talking about discernment when I was describing intuition? Well, discernment is something that's there as well. So you know what? Let's look up a definition of discernment real quick. All right, discernment is the ability to judge well, right? So you're using intuition, a feeling, spiritual inclination, whatever. That's intuition, right? That's more intuitive, pneumatical thought process, etc. Experiences, gut feeling, right? By the way, gut health is very important. You don't think just from your brain; you actually think through your whole body, right? So you have gut health. Like when you say, "I feel it in my gut," sometimes you feel anxiety, you feel anxious, your heart starts to move. You're thinking with your heart, right? You don't just think with your brain physically. However, so that's what we're talking about more with intuition. Discernment is once again the ability to judge well. I can use these things together. I have a system in place systematically and systemically that allows me to be in a wise position to judge, right? To make a judgment. So right. Also, they'll say in a biblical context, it's perception in the absence of judgment with a view to obtaining spiritual direction and understanding. And I wouldn't even utilize that, because that's somebody, basically they're trying to say either you judge well or you believe in the Bible, you don't judge well. They attack stuff. So you got to be careful with definitions, right? I like to use words fine as what they are, right? Um, leave it fine. We keep defining it, but we should leave it fine. So somebody else, so they have two definitions that I just see right up top to say to judge well. This is, discernment is what you use to judge. Now, we don't discern as far as people's, or judge as far as people's salvation. That's for the Most High. But discernment, intuition kind of is something that can be used to discern. Not kind of. Intuition is something that can be used to discern. But discernment in and of itself is not always intuition. Intuition is something you feel, then judgment or discernment is something you use later on. Right. That's more so how discernment works. But that's great questions. Great questions, you guys. Thanks for being on. Hello, Miko. How you doing? Excuse me. All righty. When we are weak, he is strong. Amen. Amen. Yes, Minister Nice is always great at giving the word. I'm sorry, y'all. I keep coughing. Need to figure out what's going on. Pour myself some water real quick. Excuse me. Let me see. Any other questions? Yeah, so if your sister's nursing program is trying to make her take it, you can definitely try and contact me about it. We can see what the situation is, and we can go from there. But yeah, they can't force you, to take it. If you sign off on certain things, or if you use certain language where you're giving up your rights, they can force you to do some things, right? But they can't force you to take something at all. As a matter of fact, it's illegal worldwide. Well, unless you're in certain countries, but the United States of America is not one country, thankfully. Let's give some credit where credit is due. United States of America is not somewhere where you have to take something. They're trying to get you to sign away your rights, right? Like on other places, when people bring up like Canada, places like that, and the things that they're going through and the fights that they're having or whatever, it's because that in Canada, people kept signing away their rights for so long that now, yeah, they can do whatever they want, but you had, whether you like the people or not, you had people that fought for your rights. You had people that fought to make sure you could have guns. You had people that fight to say you don't have to pay taxes. You had people that fought. Like, these are all things that were fought for. So all you're doing is basically fighting for what others have already done. That's why we mentioned a lot of stuff like Google Scholar. Go on, not just Google something, go to Google Scholar and look it up. And when you look up Google Scholar, you'll discover that you can look at the law and you can look at case study. That's what the Bible is, law and case study. Just keep looking at law and case study and you'll figure out what these things are. They just is a continued conversation. And if you learn, you just have to learn the language. All we're doing is taking it from biblical language to putting it in lawful language. Bible says 2 or 3 witnesses, where 2 or 3 are gathered. Well, 2 or 3 witnesses in court of law, affidavits even, right? The Bible says that there's Father, Son, Holy Spirit, where you look at executive, legislative, and judicial. The Bible says that, Yah is the true judge. So even with the judges, there were judges, and then there were people who gave judgment, but then there's really only one true judge. Well, look at how your system is set up. The only true judges are Supreme Court judges. The other judges, they work for the executive, the legislative branch, but they also represent in priestly robes somebody higher than themselves, because there's only one true judge. Therefore, you are supposed to be free, and those around you, they should be learning from you at your feet, because you're supposed to be a master or a teacher. Well, guess what? The people that are even the judges that we talked about, and the president, and anybody in between and all around, all those people are public servants. It's learning how to take what the Bible is saying, and the devil has made it a point to put this wild system in place that causes you to have to speak a different language but say the same thing. Be in the system but not of it. Be in the world but not of it. Clem said a question about dealing with family, not hearing what you hear about this awakening. Can you share scriptures you can share with them? Sure. I mean, you might want to be a little more specific with me, because I don't know if I'm gonna, because there's so many different things. Can you? I'm asking a lot of you, Brother Clem, especially if you're working or traveling or something. But is it possible, maybe even if you want to list out 5, 6 of them, I don't mind. But can you list out some specific things? I don't want to like, are we talking about Yeshua versus Jesus? Are we talking about husband and wife and what we believe? Are we talking about why we believe that Israel must be sealed? Are we talking about why we don't deal in church language as much as we deal in biblical language? Are we talking about why we, things like that? Like, I don't know which one to go off of. Interesting name, says my 3-year-old been watching this for 5 minutes and saying it's her favorite. Oh, well, hello, 3-year-old. I don't know the name, but hello to you. We appreciate you. We honor you. Hopefully you're doing well. Actually, who was that said that? Who was that said that? Okay, no, I don't know the name of that 3-year-old. I was about to say I might know the name of the 3-year-old, but I don't know you. Deja says, and there are laws that protect them from being sued if something goes wrong afterwards. There are, but once again, you have to see what you're signing up for. You also have to make sure that you can sign your stuff differently than everybody else, just by saying without prejudice or adding a UCC 1-308 to your signature. You're letting them know in advance. By the way, just because they say sign this document so we can do surgery with you, you don't have to sign that document. You can have them sign something different. And if they say, well, we're not going to sign blah, blah, or whatever, then you go above them and you say, well, why won't you sign things? Because legally you're in control. If it's a contract, you don't have to. It's like if you're going to have a child at a hospital, you can tell them that you want your child to be born in water, right? So they come from water to water, right? You can tell them that you want to have your child where you're not on your back, because some French king had some weird fetish with women giving birth and had them on their back, but you want them to be straight up again is what is naturally best, so you can use the same muscles that you use to use the bathroom, and that fecal matter can touch the baby as the baby's coming up because it's actually necessary, because you're so focused on the sterility of it, not realizing that the baby actually needs some germs around it so that they can start to fight disease. These are things that naturally are there that we know. So, Brother Clem, if I don't see anything from you in a minute, I'm not going to ignore you. I'm just going to come back to you. But I just wanted to see if I could give you a chance, if you wanted to tell me exactly what you wanted on there. So I just want you to know I'm not forgetting you. So how can I sign up for Patreon, get the information, because I feel like they're giving her an ultimatum? Well, like I said, I don't know if we'll put it on Patreon only, because that's kind of unfair. But if you would like to, since you're the person asking the question, we could then therefore put it on Patreon rather than trying to set up a one-on-one, which might take some time, especially with me needing a break for a minute. So if you do Patreon, it's just $5 a month. And you just go get the Patreon app or go online to patreon.com and look up my name without the underscore. I'm sorry, I can't point to it because the car is in the way. Without the underscore, without the number 3, just Kofi of 40. Right. My name, KOFIOFORI. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on the podcast, just look up another podcast that already has our information in all together. And once we upload this podcast, and it'll have it on there, just type that in, $5 donation a month. And, if you do sign up today. So what I'll do is I'll hold off on what it is that we were going to talk about. If you put it in there because it's something that's very specific and something we need to have conversation about, I still have to be careful. You know what? I still would have to be careful about it because of the way we're going to go live, even though it'd be unlisted. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll get in contact with me. We'll figure out a way to talk about it and go further with it. Like I said, it depends on the situation that's there. Mitchell says sent me the information how to get on Zoom email. Okay, well, if you can send your email, I can try and take a screenshot, but I say this all the time, a screenshot's not necessarily going to be the greatest technique for me to write this out. I don't know if maybe somebody who's on, maybe one of the people who do contact lists for us, or maybe one of the ministerial staff, if you can take down the person's email for me. It's churchwellm@bellsouth.net. But you can always DM us as well, or you can go, if you're on TikTok, you can just look on TikTok, look up where it says bio, there's information there, but also then look at the website where it says website, that's our link tree. Click on that link tree, it'll take you to a site that has all these platforms. Get in touch with us and we can set something up. Deja says, oh, I wish I could delete last comment. Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. They're not going to do it through there. It's really through YouTube that the issue is. You said, yes, because my son's doctor told me if I didn't get my toddler vaccinated, they would drop him as a patient. Yeah, that's illegal. First of all, that's against the Hippocratic Oath. People are like applauding this and acting like there's something, but that's against the Hippocratic Oath. Now, I know the Hippocratic Oath, the original one, is very, very, very off. So I guess you could say it depends on which one they're going by. But if they're going by the modern one, which is supposedly what they go by, Hippocratic Oath says that you're supposed to protect everybody. That's like saying that, well, somebody got, somebody has, or, you find out that somebody has, I don't know, what is that? Forgive me, I'm hepatitis. And so because they have hepatitis, you're not going to help them until they go somewhere and get a hepatitis shot. But if everywhere they go to try and get a hepatitis shot, they're not helped, well, then everybody's saying that they won't help somebody. So you're going to let somebody ultimately be affected, possibly even die because of hepatitis, or you're going to give them what you say is supposed to be the shot that helps them. So it doesn't even make sense, right? Or that's like, well, this one person, they have they have rabies or whatever, so I'm not going to help them until they not have rabies. It's against the Hippocratic Oath, right? You're not even worthy of being a doctor according to law. Like, you should be done away with legally. You should be done away with. Then what they'll come back and say, well, I don't have to take care of any patient if the patient is going to be somebody that I feel is a danger to me. Well, anything could be a danger to you. I mean, have you ever done surgery on somebody and then come to find out that the person, you're taking out a cyst or something like that? Well, the cyst, if it messes around and something happens with the cyst, or something happens even with you're not you're still got all your surgical stuff on, but something could touch your skin all of a sudden that's not supposed to. Next thing you know, right? Or that's like seeing that, like, there's a child out there, the child's been shot. Well, you know what, the child's bleeding. I don't know if the child has anything wrong with them. So you know what, that blood could be anything. It could be HIV, it could be whatever. So I'm not going to help the child. I'm just going to let them die, right? Like, that doctor would have their stuff removed. Like, you let that child die. You see? So it's very, it's a lot of stuff that's there. I see you, trauma. You said, should we eat meat? That's a very interesting one. If we be honest, biblically speaking, we were never supposed to eat meat in the first place. It wasn't until the flood that we began to be allowed to eat meat. That's why there were 2 of some animals and 7 of some others. Because the 7 were there because you might need to eat meat. They brought poles and they brought things. They might have dried some things out, but after a while, you're going to need something to eat. And not only did it rain for 40 days and 40 nights, remember that it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and then it took months and months and months for everything to subside. And then after that, it's going to take months and months and months for things to be able to grow back to what they are, and for you to farm the land, and for you to do all types of stuff, right? And then trial and error, and then be able to move and take things with you, and then have to redevelop that. So all of a sudden, now you go from that to now you can eat, you're allowed to eat meat. So if somebody wants to go vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, all these different things, but vegan, I guess, would be the main thing if you're not eating any meat of any kind. Some vegan, I guess, for a lot of people, talking about not even eating honey or things of that nature. I don't know about all that, but it's not a commandment that you mustn't. But yeah, the original version of ourselves did not eat meat. It wasn't until Noah actually and his family on the ark, and they need food, sustenance, that they eat. But even the meat that they ate, they're given specific instructions on which meat to eat and which ones not, because a lot of those meats, they carry disease, right? Once again, going back to, if somebody's giving you a shot, they're feeding you. They want to try, oh, no, we're not feeding. No, you're intravenously feeding me. If somebody was not able to eat, or somebody was in a coma, how would you feed them food? How would you make sure that they got sustenance? You'd intravenously feed them, right? You would intravenously feed them. So, like, that's what you're dealing with. So yeah, we don't have to, or we're not necessarily biblically. Hello, Sister Helen, how you doing? Well, biblically, we weren't created. How you doing, Brother Coleman? We weren't created to eat meat. We obviously were created with the ability to break it down, but it really wasn't. It's not the greatest way of stuff. But I eat meat. I don't eat as much meat as I used to. Matter of fact, I've actually kind of increased my meat intake as of late, right? But we're really supposed to have way more. Like, if you're eating meat on a regular basis, hopefully you're not eating 3 meals a day, 5 meals a day, huge meals all day, every day, and then having snacks in between, right? But if you eat meat, you should have on your plate, bare minimum, 2/3 of the plate should be vegetables of different colors, depending on if you're trying to get the whole spectrum, and then you should have some meat. One of the things that I say too, for a lot of people, because a lot of vegans, not all, right? I know not all, but a lot of vegans actually end up going back to meat from time to time because they're not able to get everything they need out of the plants because we don't grow plants correctly anymore. We don't rotate crops and things like that. So if you are going to go that route, you have to make sure that you're aware of how to get all of the amino acids and things that you need. But one of the reasons why my wife would tell somebody, if you're not vegan, hey, make sure that you get some eggs in your life, or even if you are vegan, if you're dealing with something right now and we find out you're not getting all the amino acids you need, we might say, hey, as an emergency, you might need some eggs in your life real quick. And because eggs will give you everything, like chicken eggs. Well, I guess eggs in general, but I don't know how many different types of eggs we're eating. But some chicken eggs, they'll give, for sure, I know that for sure, they'll give you 100% of the amino acids that you need. But it depends. It's a lifestyle and things like that. There's a lot more that goes into it. But as far as, is there any curse on anybody that eats meat? No. Are there things that we should try to make sure we're getting away from? Like a lot of pork and things that are carrying diseases and things that you can't cook out of it. Should we make sure that we're getting away from certain animals that can deal with tapeworms, but we can't deal with tapeworms. So now you got a tapeworm in your body, and that tapeworm is, it's something crazy. Like I think it's over 50%. It might be well over 50%. I can't remember, but there's matter of fact, let me look it up. The percentage of people who actually have tapeworms and stuff in their body. Let me see. So it says approximately 50. Okay, so it's not what I thought. Okay. It says approximately 50 million persons are infected with both parasites. Affected with both. Hold on. No, that's not what I want. Huh. See, it's weird. They're saying that they're rare. That's not what. So I don't know. I don't know which one to see. Now it's saying it's rare. Now there's another one saying it's most. Yeah, see, and then they say, yeah, because the reality is, so I don't know how many, but basically there are millions of people who have tapeworms in America and don't even know it. We'll just say it like that. Right. And so a lot of people will just be like, oh, well, that just came randomly, or this and that, or there's an infection or somehow. No, like the tapeworm gets inside your body because of what you eat. So tapeworms usually going to be attached to meat because they exist inside of other people's bodies, or they'll come in through water and stuff that you're drinking, because they literally, are released. They release pieces of themselves out. Sometimes people have a bunch of tapeworms or different types of things inside them or whatever, but a lot of times they release themselves out with bowel movement. So, water not treated correctly, or it goes out somewhere else, or this and that, or now you eating the fish and it has this. So you have to be careful with how stuff is made. So there's a lot of stuff, especially people who are in the raw fish, or people who are in the raw seafood in general, into raw, people that don't want their burgers cooked all the way through. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens, and just because you don't see a worm doesn't mean that there's not an egg. So it's and I'm just talking about tapeworms, by itself. There's a lot of different things that come with it, not just tapeworm. So yeah, okay, I see you, brother Clem. I'm about to come over to you. Trish said if our sight is limited to certain colors, can't the sky be another color, but we can't see it? Well, I mean, the sky is technically not even a color from what they say. Now, I believe the sky looks like different color for different biblical reasons, but I'll leave that there because I might lose some of y'all who might not want to go down that path and might think I'm crazy for going down that path. But they say scientifically, at least what science tells us, or at least some scientists tell us, is that the reason why the sky is blue is just because of certain things that come through the atmosphere, and come through the ozone layer and other things that are there, but in the atmosphere. But if that's the case, if the ozone layer and other things keep going away, you would think that the color of the sky would change. Nevertheless, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that's supposedly supposed to be the reason why things are there. But I mean, that's a great question. You probably have to go to somebody that's above my head to go a little further into that. But I have a different thought process on why the sky is the color that it is. Thanks for being part of Community 2021. I think it was 2021 death. Woman's intuition is divine, Sirach 38:4. Mm-hmm. If you're really into books, you know the formula science used is very limited and can be wrong. Most definitely. Most definitely. That's why a lot of stuff is theoretical. That's why a lot of stuff is theoretical. Hey, Shalom, Chill Pill. How you doing? Alrighty, so I see a bunch of questions on. Trying to scroll through and catch up. I'm going to come back to you and Brother Clem in just a second. You say, is it blue because the water above the firmament? So that's what, personally, I look at it as the Bible talks about the sun goes around the earth, so does the moon. That's what Kemetic people believed as well. If you know about noonday, noon is basically the name of a netcher, of a female netcher that used to go around, and the sun was supposed to be on top of her head, and when she got in a certain position, they called that noonday. That meant that she was at a place where she was on top of it, right, on top of the earth. In the same manner, the Bible talks about the sun going around, and there's this Hakia, or what people try to call the firmament, that Greek god, but we don't call it the Greek god. We don't call it firmament, so we call it Hakia. Hakia is the substance, or the hard, thing that's there where, open the windows of heaven, right, and pour you out, right? It's talking about, those things being opened up, the heavens being opened up. It's talking about Arakia and this upper seas that's that we're protected from, or whatever. When it opens up, flooding and things like that take place. And also it is what then, on the other side of that, where the Most High looks through to be able to see, and he says it looks down on it. It's like lapis lazuli. If you look up what lapis lazuli looks like, it looks like the earth, right? Or arats, or so that's what it is. And then it says that the greater day, during the day, you can see the blue because it's the greater light during the day, unless there's clouds in between, which makes it gray, right? But then after that, you see this, right? But then it says, then there's a lesser light that comes around during the night, right? And as lesser light comes around, and so you don't necessarily see the blue at all, but you have enough light to be able to see what's going on. So there's a lot of different things there, right? But I don't know how much of that is somebody would start telling me all the scientific idiosyncrasies and ideologies and theories and et cetera, I should just go ahead and accept. So that is what it is. So there are so many different parasites, microscopic, even on vegetables. First step to health. Yeah, but there's not going to. So yeah, there are, most definitely, and you should make sure your food is clean, or grow your own food and you know what's on your food, right? You said since the flu was lab made for pandemics worldwide, gender changes has tripled. Is that why they make a jab? Well, possibly. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff, like the stuff that they spray on corn. Like I used to love getting corn and burritos, or different things I would have, even quesadillas, or different things that I would have to eat and stuff. But the corn is always sprayed with a lot of stuff. There was a black guy actually who started telling everybody that he was asked by different companies who were spraying corn to test it and stuff, and he started testing it on the frogs. The frogs actually the male frogs stopped having intercourse. Then they actually started losing genitalia. Some of them actually started developing ovaries, and then some of them actually started trying to have sex with other male frogs. So he said, this is stuff that you're talking about feeding people, and we shouldn't do it. And I mean, they tried to, I don't know if I hope he's still alive. He was alive to tell everybody that they came after him and tried to take his life and threatened his life, for sure. So that could be, there's a lot of stuff in there that we would look at already and be able to see. He said, work in a law firm who sued pharmaceutical companies and doctors to say that doctor can be sued. Yeah, most definitely. Is Achaya the true name of the Almighty? No, Yahweh is. Achaya usually comes from Chayach, but people put a ah in front of it, which you don't need to character-wise, but people for some reason have started saying Achayach instead of Chayach. But if you look up what they're doing, And I'm coming to you next. I promise, Brother Clem. All right, because after that, we'll just let everybody ride for a second. We were hundreds of comments behind on there, so I had to just catch up. So achayach is what people are using. It really comes from chayach, che yad che, which is in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. That's where people poetically started saying, I am that I am. That was never originally written, by the way. So if you put Exodus chapter 3, verse 14 and 15 together, what they try to say is, Moses has just said, what should I tell your people, the Israelites? When I go back, what should I tell them your name is, your authority, your Shem? And so he says, well, first of all, when you read it in English, it reads like this. It says, I am that I am. Right. And so he says, I am that I am. So tell them that I am has sent thee. Then verse 15 says, moreover, my name is the Lord. That we're talking about in English versions now. It says, moreover, my name is the Lord God. Right. And that is the name that I was known by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that name should be a monument to me forever. Anybody who's my people, that should be a monument to me forever. My name, Lord God. All right. So if we look at it in English, it seems like it's saying, well, he said his name is I am that I am. But wait a minute, he didn't say I am that I am, nor did he say I am is my name, because verse 15, he said, moreover, more importantly than that, my name is Lord God. So right there, we got an issue going on. Why do we have an issue? Because people use the word chayach, or now they're trying to say achayach. They're going to Exodus chapter 3, verse 14 to say that. Because if you look in the concordance, in the Strong's Concordance, what you'll find is when it says I am that I am, it actually says chayach in Hebrew. Chayach is actually saying that it is what it is, or this is the environment, or this is what it is what it is, kind of like so what he's really saying is, when Moses is there in the burning bush, remember for 40 years he knew about this bush to burn but wasn't consumed, finally decided one day to go to it, took his feet off, or took his feet off. That would be something, right? Took his shoes off his feet because he was on holy ground, and began to have a discussion with the Most High. Out of this discussion, he realizes that he's going to have to go back and talk to the chosen people. He's tried to get out of it. He's not going to be able to get out of it. So he says, okay, well, what is even the authority? The Shem. That's what Shem actually means, or Sham, but we say Shem, right? What is the Shem? What is the Sham? What is your authority? What is your name? And he says, well, Chayach. He says, like, this is really what matters, is that I'm a bush that burned and is not consumed, right? Like that's what I am. That's more important than anything else. So he says, so then they change the next word, which is a whole different word. It's not even chayach, but they try to say, so tell them I am sent me. And that's not what it would have said. It would have said, look, man, you're in a position where you see what's going on. But then the next verse 15, Exodus chapter 3, verse 15 says, moreover, tell them that my name is what? The Lord God. Now, the Lord God always translates to what? Yahweh Elohim, right? Lord God was not his name. He said, moreover, my name is Yahweh Elohim. If you look up in the concordance, even the Strong's Concordance, right, you'll find that there as well. So when you see that, he's telling you straight up, my name, by authority, my Shem is Yahweh, right? Elohim is the title, but his name is Yahweh, right? The same thing that was used in Bereshit Bet, or Genesis chapter 2, starting at verse 4. You kept saying, Lord God, Lord God, Lord God, Lord God. It was saying Yahweh Elohim. So he was saying, so they already knew of this term Yahweh, right? But it was something that was used less and less and less and less in hundreds of years of slavery. So he says, as a reminder, hey, I'm telling you who I was from the beginning. He says it's the same name. He said, remind them this is the same name that they knew me by when it was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and it forever will be a monument to me. So when people are talking about Yahweh, Elohim, and all those things, or talking about I am that I am, they're usually coming from a different perspective, a different culture. My wife said, don't take your feet. Hey, man. I don't know why I said take your feet off. That's a hilarious visual, somebody taking their feet off. Or maybe it's a scary visual. You said, what about meat? I think we talked about meat already. I'm not sure. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, Solomon. Solid oxygen is a key. Might be. It would make more sense than some of the stuff I've heard. For real, for real. No, 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 no. It's not anything to apologize. A lot of people don't know. That's why I'm saying we use these terms like firmament, things like that, but it's not really what it is. You said you're reading Harriet Washington's Infectious Madness, talks all about it. There you go. I've only read a little tiny bit about this. So I'm not aware, but I kind of know what you're talking about. Is it blue because the water above? Yeah, okay, so I read that. All right, cool. So if I didn't get to some comments on TikTok for a second, please forgive me. I've tried my best to scroll through as much as possible. Let me finally get to Brother Clem, who has been very patient, because I asked him, I said, go ahead, write out as much stuff as you want. I think we've probably talked about a few of these things already, because you were saying, what if family members have questions, comments, concerns about some of this? So you said, okay, like Colossians chapter 4, verse 6. I'm struggling with ways to get my family to hear me. Now I don't care for once, only focusing on needs. Okay. All right. Colossians chapter 4 and verse 6. So let's go there. Let's see. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's weird. They're saying that they can't find a signal, but the signal's working. It's weird. All right, there we go. So Colossians. We're looking for chapter 4. So Colossians chapter 4, verse 6 says, let your speech, let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know ye are taught to answer every, or how ye ought to answer every man. So yeah, okay. So that in and of itself is just dealing with the spirit, and it says, let your so it uses particular language, right? It uses particular language. It says, let your speech, so what we say, be always, right? So eternally with grace. Now the word grace, once again, is coming from a perspective that's talking about who you are, the very being you are. So a lot of people think that grace is like, unmerited favor and this and that or whatever. Well, when it talks about Yah's grace, it would be unmerited favor, because he gives unmerited favor. Right. By the way, even unmerited favor is a very interesting word usage, because I don't even know if it's unmerited. Right. Like, a merit would basically be something that's earned. And somebody said, well, you didn't earn who he is. So I guess you could say in that he gives unmerited grace, but he gives his grace, or he shows himself to those who who have done things that merit him being able to show who he is. Once again, it goes to this place that people don't like to have this conversation, but it goes back to this place of this is not for everybody. And this is not everybody's. This is not a revelation for everybody. This is not everybody's revelation, right? It is. There are some things that you have to do to be able to be allowed to get some of the stuff. A lot of people, like, for example, what is it? Forgive me, I'm trying to go to. I just. Being not double-minded. Is it James 1:8? I don't even know if that's where I was really, really going, but James chapter 1, verse 8, people talk about that and won't talk about the fact that, it's talking about in prayer. If you're double-minded in prayer, if you rewind a little bit to verse 5, read verses 5, James 1, 5 through 8, maybe we go into verse 9, you'll discover that it's talking about all these different issues that are going on. And with your prayer life. And if you aren't living correctly, right, then how are you going to pray correctly? Because the Most High, when you're praying to the Most High, what you are in essence doing is you are actually communicating with him. If you don't know him, then you can't communicate with him as somebody who knows him, right? Like, it's very weird for me if somebody who I've never met will walk up to me and say something like, hey man, I have you know if somebody who I've never met comes up and says, hey man, great to meet you, how are your wife and your children doing? It's like, I don't know you, right? I have no intimacy with you. I have no thought process, right? It'd be very weird for somebody that's not my wife to come up to me talking about, what's your favorite, you know, um, what's your favorite kind of date to go on? That's a very weird question, right? It'd be a very odd question. Sisters, if you were out there and a man came to you talking about, like when, I guess people do that with each other, but to me it's a very odd question when people ask, what's your sign? Like, I don't know you. I don't even really get into all that stuff, but I'm just saying, like, it's a very weird question. But we're in a place where a lot of people are not talking about grace. So it's talking about grace, who you are. So first and foremost, if you are a child of the Most High, right, then First Colossians chapter 4, when it's talking about verse 5, walk in wisdom. Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute. Where am I at? Verse 6, sorry. Let your speech be always with grace, right? So with who the Most High is, speak like he speaks, seasoned with salt. Salt is something that also means that word will not only be seasoned where it tastes great, but also it means that it will be able to last longer. That's the main reason why you use salt back in the day. Now we use salt for all types of stuff, but back in the day you use it so that wisdom would last longer, right? So speak eternally. Don't speak in the moment. Speak how it will last eternally, that ye may know, or that you may be intimate, how ye ought to answer every man. So if your walk is intimate with the Most High, who has a word that can save any person who decides to come out of the system and be in his righteous kingdom, then you'll always have an answer for everybody. But if you go to verse 1, you said started verse 5, but I want to go back to verse 1. If you go to verse 1, masters, who is it talking about? Masters. Who is it talking about? Masters, right? What is a master? A master is a teacher. It is not an owner. You see, people say masters, and they see master and slave, and then it says given to your servants. And see, they're talking about slaves. No. It's talking about indentured servants. These are people who who wrote a contract out with the master to be able to work for them, work under them, and also have their stuff taken care of that they couldn't handle financially. Do it for a certain amount of time, and while that being allowed, maybe down the road, to join in their family, be able to have their room taken, board is always going to be taken care of, all these things, right? So and also teach them the business that the master is in. So if somebody's coming under a master, see what's going on. This is not just for everybody. This verse starts, this chapter is talking about masters, teachers, rabboni, rabbi, right? All this stuff. It's talking about teachers. So teachers, masters, give unto your servants. If somebody's contracted with you, somebody decided to be under you, somebody decided to get something, okay, give unto those who are going to serve you that which is just. The just shall live by faith, right? So those that are living by faith, right, that which is just, give them something to help them to live by, and equal. So you can't be equal to me, I can't be equal to you. So it's not talking about giving you myself, but I can give you a door to the Most High. I can give you access to be able to become greater. Why? Knowing that ye also have a master in heaven. So you have a teacher. And it's talking about, it's really talking about not Ravak Hakwadash and how she teaches, even though that's somebody who we should definitely listen to. It's really contextually talking about Lamed, or talking about the great shepherd, the great teacher, Yashvai. Right. So he says, continue in prayer. Got to be in prayer all the time, and watch the same with thanksgiving. So watch over those things thankfully. Pray all the time and watch over all these things going on, including the things the people that are under you will need, right? And do so with thanksgiving. Be thankful, right? With all praying also for us, that Elohim would open unto us a door of utterance to speak the mystery of Christ, for which I am also in bonds. Here he goes again, Ephesians chapter 3, Ephesians chapter 4, Colossians chapter 4, verse 3. Now talking about, hey, I've decided to be in chains. As a result of my free will, I'm going to help those who are going to be grafted in. So I'm dealing with a different type of person. That's people that are not part of this system or not part of this culture. I'm trying to bring them in. Verse 4, that I may make it manifest as I ought to speak, that I might, whatever I speak is going to come out to be manifest, because it's tied to the teacher of teachers, right? Verse 5, therefore, we just talked about, walk in wisdom toward them that are without, that are without. Walk in wisdom. I'm sorry, we haven't even got to verse 6 yet. Sorry. But walk in wisdom. What are we walking in? Wisdom. What are we even dealing with? The 12 pillars of wisdom. That's the midst of this series that we're in, right? So walk in what? Walk in wisdom What does it say next? Walk in wisdom toward them that are without. Wow. So they're going to come to you without wisdom. People are going to come on here. First thing they're going to do is, oh, I can't pay attention to nobody whose hair looks like that. Well, you can't walk in wisdom, but I'll walk in wisdom. If you can only see as far as your eyes can see, or as far as somebody else's culture tells you about me, then I need to still stay in a position to where I comprehend. Look, I'm not better than you, but what I walk in definitely is better. Right? If I can't hear what you're saying just because you're white, then we're gonna have a problem. If I can't hear what you're saying just because you're black, we're gonna have a problem, right? Like if I can only see just because of the skin color, if I can only see just because you're an American, if I can only listen to you just because you speak the same language, if I can only listen to you just because you speak the same love language, if I can only have the ability to listen to you because you're a Republican or a Democrat or a communist or a libertarian or part of the Green Party, the list goes on and on and on. If I can only hear you because you hail somebody, if I can only hear you because you don't believe in any kind of spirituality, if I can only hear you because you agree with everything that I say as far as evolution or everything I say as far as creationism, if I can only hear you because of that, then we have a problem. Walk in wisdom even when others can't. That's why you have to have the ability to be an empath. If you can't be an empath at all, you're in trouble. Right? If you, no problem, Brother Clem. I saw the rest of what you were saying about contacting me. Right. But if I can only talk to you out of what it is, right? As long as you agree with me, that's not wisdom. That means I'm limited. Right. So if somebody comes to me and they start talking about, well, I believe in reincarnation, I should be able to talk to them and say, as I've told you guys before, I should be able to have a conversation with them and say, no problem, I believe in reincarnation too. And everybody else will freak out. But I'll say, I don't believe you can keep coming back over and over and over again, but I believe that Christ was incarnate as one with the Father, Aleph Bet. I believe that Christ then came down and he was incarnate in Mary's womb. I believe then he was incarnate also as a little baby boy. And I believe that after he grew up into a man and he then died for me, he was incarnate in a position to where I don't have to experience hell because he took that for me. But then I also believe he was incarnate again as somebody who came back on the earth realm and said, hey, let me pop in this room and you can put the holes in my, you can poke through the holes in my hands and you can put your hand in my side, Thomas. Right. And then he went to heaven, and it says he was incarnate again in Revelation chapter 1, verses 14 and 15. But then it says he's going to come back again, incarnate in another way. Right. And then finally, when he's in heaven, ultimately it says he's going to be incarnate in such a manner that we won't even be able to look upon him, and he's going to put the sun to shame because of the enlightenment and the brightness that's coming off of him. Right? Every time he did that, that was reincarnate. That doesn't mean that I believe he's going to, that you can come back as a fish and as a butterfly. No, but I believe that I will die and I will take off corruptible and I will be given incorruptible and be reincarnate as somebody that can now, my eternal soul and my eternal spirit can now have an eternal body to live forever. See, now I can have a different conversation because I actually am able to once again be in the world. I can speak your language, but I'm not of it. Let me make sure I make some clear distinctions. Right? Like I can speak your language where you comprehend, right? So now the person who's in the reincarnation and thought that they were going to go ahead and tell me how terrible I am because I don't believe in reincarnation and that, whatever. They don't have that. They don't have a leg to stand on as far as that. I've given them a reason for the hope, for the things that I've hoped in such a manner to where we ain't gonna argue reincarnation anymore. If you just believe that you're gonna come back as whatever, and you can't tell me any rhyme or reason to it, you're just saying it's a belief. Fine, but I gave you specific reasons on my reincarnation. Right, or at least my thought process on it based off of the Most Highs, right? So I'm going to come to you with wisdom, and then it says what? Walk in wisdom toward them that are without, redeeming the time. So a lot of us are wasting our time. Remember, redemption was the fourth pillar. A lot of us are wasting our time because we have not deemed it correctly because we have not been redeemed. In other words, remember, deem means to consider. So when I redeem something, I'm reconsidering something. If I have been redeemed, I have been reconsidered by the Most High. And he tells me in the beginning of Colossians chapter 4, verse 1, to be a master, to be a teacher. If I got my master's in this, and I can teach this thing correctly, then I should reconsider the way, right, that I'm talking to people and not keep talking the same way, but I should look at their experience and their love language and what their religiosity is and how long they've been in it and why they might have left the truth, why they think that the truth is in the church, why they think the truth is in whatever pastor it is, instead of realizing that you should try every spirit by the spirit, right? And I can redeem the time I'm spending with them. So now that I redeem that time and I have a different mindset and I can reconsider and I've been reconsidered and I can get them to reconsider. Now we get to verse 6. Let your speech be always with grace. Let it look like the Most High who reconsidered you in the first place. Seasoned with salt is going to last eternally now, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man. Amen. Right? So, in that sense, we're able to look at it a lot differently, right? But it's got to be from that place of being redeemed, one of the pillars of wisdom, the fourth pillar of wisdom, to be exact. Thank you for the question. Great question. Hello, how you doing, Shabbos? Henry says, I know this is off topic, but have you ever heard Doug Rice speak? Not inappropriate. I don't know that name. I have seen the face, but I can't say I remember the name Doug Rice. Thanks for being part of the community, Pizzy. A sensei. A sensei is another form of saying master, yep, or shifu. Like I have a shifu. Matter of fact, Solomon today, prayerfully, he's supposed to be getting he's actually a little behind. We travel so much that he hasn't been able to get like his last 2-3 belts in Kung Fu. So Shifu's gonna be excited today. We're not gonna tell him, but we're gonna show up later, and he's gonna do his thing and prayerfully come out of there with another belt, and because he's been working on his stuff, right? And he's getting closer to mastering. The more stuff he masters, the more belts he has under his belt, right? When you get to the black belt just means that you have all these other belts that are yours, right? So yeah, Shifu, sensei, master, teacher, rabbi, or rabbanai, all these different things. They're talking about the same thing. Yet trying to read common characteristics. Remember, we walked away from the garden. Grace is being allowed to walk back. I'm on, but that's why once again, grace actually means who somebody is. So you walk back through him. That's why Yashua is the door. He's a dollar. You see that? So like a lot of times we only think of grace, as it's just, oh yeah, that's him being nice, or we think, oh, they have such grace. The person that's evil has grace too by definition. So be careful what kind of grace you're getting. Grace is just simply talking about who you are. When people say grace, what they're saying is speak to the one that's outside of you, but also lives inside of you. They're saying speak to, in essence, who we are. It's a very different type of perspective. And I feel like a person's testimony becomes the merit, and Yah teaches us grace in which to get it. I mean, their testimony becomes the merit. If you repenting becomes merit, you loving becomes merit. All these different things. Miriam, you said what about son's name? Talking about Yashua? I don't remember what I was talking about then. I'm sorry, Miriam. What about the son's name? As far as when I was talking about Lord God or Yahweh Elohim, or the son's name is Yashua. It's just told us to us in Matthew chapter 1 and Luke chapter 3. It's told us that that's what the angel told Mary, or Mariam. Her name was actually Miriam as well. So Mary was actually Miriam, and Miriam's was told by the angel that his name. There were basically two names. We don't even deal with the second name at all, really, unless somebody sings it in a song. But two names that we're supposed to be focused on: Yashua, which literally means to cry out to Yahweh. Or if you were to go character by character, Yashua actually is saying the hand of Yah through the Holy Spirit is going to allow somebody to be destroyed by being nailed, and therefore now our countenance and our appearance will change. That's actually like what the characters of his name, if you write out, Yod, He, Sheen, Vav, Ayin, it's actually telling you what's going to happen with him. But it also Shvai means to cry out. Yach is short for Yachavach. So even Yachshvai is saying Yachavach, but shortening it, putting it as a compound word in the sense. Instead of saying Yachavach, you're taking off the Chavach and putting Yach, or you're putting taking off the Va actually, and you're putting the Yach Yahweh with the so anyone who calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved is saying anybody who calls upon the name, which means to cry out to Yahweh, shall be saved. That's literally what it's telling you. The other name that we don't pay any attention to is Amanal or Emmanuel or Amanval, really, right? What is Amanval or Emmanuel? Emmanuel is literally saying that he is Yah inside of us. That's actually what it means. Emmanuel actually means he is Yah inside of us, or he is Yah with us. Either way, right? So, or I'm sorry, somebody would argue not Yah. So excuse me. He is Elohim inside of us, or Elohim with us, which actually goes deeper into the Father, the Source, the Son, who dies for us, and the Holy Ghost. She and all three are inside of us while being outside of it, while being in everything else, while being in us. As long as whatever it is eternal and is based off of the Most High, right, and is based off of His principles, then He is inside of that. And that's why, going back to what we said earlier, even about the vaccine, do you not know that your body is the temple for Elohim, for the living Elohim, right? And to live is also to walk. So the walking Elohim, walk and live are interchangeable. So He walks inside of you. He lives inside of you. That's why He said, I've come that you might have life and have more abundant. I've come that you can walk differently and have more abundance. So you think that you have life, but you've been a zombie, because all you do is you wake up, you go to sleep, you wake up, you go to work, you go to sleep, you wake up, you go to a job, you go to sleep, you wake up, you go to a job, you go to sleep. Every once in a while, maybe you fit in some kind of marital type relationship, maybe say something to your children every once in a while, possibly have a family day set up once a month or something like that, and then you just go back to doing the same thing over and over and over again. Right? But He said, I have come. He said that the enemy only wants to steal, kill, and destroy. I'm stealing your time. I'm killing your joy. I'm destroying anything that allow you to be able to walk around. You're a zombie. But He said, I've come that you might have life, that you might walk different, and therefore have more in abundance. Not just have more, but have more in abundance, that you have an overflow. Right? Different mindset. You said your study of Shabbat is showing you that the seventh day changes as the month changes. New moon is first day. So yeah, most definitely. That's something I've hinted at before. As we get ready, because a lot of people have been asking us about Shabbat. So Shabbat, we are going to have some kind of series or something on Shabbat. As a matter of fact, I'm going to reach out. Like, I haven't really done it as of yet, but there are people that I'm looking at that I've talked to, a few things that I've kind of gave little hints and stuff that, hey, be ready to talk about some stuff. Might even be some people from outside the community that I know are very well versed in some of this stuff, but we're gonna talk about Shabbat, because a lot of people don't recognize even in that, right? So I've hinted at that before, to where even when we talk about Saturday versus whatever, Saturday is not always guaranteed to be the seventh day as far as what you and I think, because the calendar is not like, so once again, like, you can get to a certain day where there can be a week might be longer than 7 days, or however you want to look at it, might be shorter than 7 days, depending on when the moon's going to show up. Right? So it's not guaranteed. So there's no guarantee. And I don't know, by the way. I'd have to do a lot of research on it. I don't know what the actual Shabbat is, because some of our calendar changed when we went under Greco-Roman rule as far as when we actually were keeping stuff up. So it's kind of difficult to know. Once again, that's why certain things that we need to do, we can't do 100% yet, because you're still in the land of captivity. So until you have your own land, until you have your own spot, which is why even before Yahweh was telling Pharaoh to let his people go completely, he was saying, let them go to at least worship, right? Because you can't really worship the Most High if you're not coming into a place and atmosphere that's for you. So it becomes, some of this stuff becomes very difficult to keep up with. But yeah, so I've said that many times, where a lot of people get into Shabbat, and it's like, well, I understand what we're doing with the Saturday thing. We're honoring it. We honor it too, but it's like, let's keep it 100. If we were going off our calendar, like, for example, and there's even different types of calendars even in Israel, so it's even difficult to go with that. But if we go off our calendar, like you got to comprehend that like the how we look at 365 days is not the same as how Israel would look at 365 days. You know, if you look at it, the same thing like with Kemet had 365 days, but they had 12 months in a row that were 30 days each. And they knew that they needed 5 extra days. And so they had like their own kind of holy days that they put on there. So, you know, you got to understand that the Gregorian and Julian calendar, you know, is when Julius Caesar went to Kemet and almost got the basically really did get the break speed off him, but he just happened to be able to have taken over the main castle, so they were able to stay in there and stay alive while all these Kemetic warriors were trying to get to him. Really, they weren't even Kemetic warriors; they were Greek at that time. It wasn't even Kemet that was in control at that point. It was now Greece, which is where you get Egypt from. Egypt is a Greco-Roman or Greek way of saying Kemet. That's why they didn't say hieroglyphics; they actually said Egypticos, because they just said this is how they claimed they were the ones that wrote on the walls, and so they said it's Egypticos. It's not even their pictographs. It's Egypticos. That's what they did. So, but nevertheless, like there's a lot of different things that come with the calendar, and a lot of people don't comprehend and realize what goes on and what cultures we're dealing with before. Because in Greece and in Rome, they were more so doing stuff where it was like they had a whole bunch of extra days. They just have extra days to the calendar all the time. Like sometimes the calendar, I think the most the calendar got passed or something like that or got messed over was something like 41 days. The calendar literally got like 40, 41 days behind to where they didn't know what was going on as far as dates. And so Julius Caesar actually won a war because he was supposed to be the one that was over the calendar. And a lot of Roman people thought Julius Caesar was wilding out and was getting too much power. So they actually tried to send somebody to fight him. But that person, you know, according to their religiosity, they were supposed to take a break. According to the god of war, they were supposed to take a break during a certain time. But he was going off of what he thought the calendar was. But Julius Caesar was actually the person that was supposed to keep the calendar going and was supposed to make sure he corrected it. So he went off of what the correction was supposed to be. The other guy didn't know. So Julius Caesar, knowing that he was still allowed to fight and knew the other guy wasn't going to fight, Julius Caesar beat him up and beat the brakes off them and won the war, right? So you got a lot of stuff that goes on calendar wise where even that part of Shabbat gets into sometimes unnecessary arguments because it's like for real, we're not even in a position where we get to keep our calendar. Like if I were to say, like let's say we're in a position, I don't know this for sure. I'm just using this as an example, right? Let's say that Shabbat, and how you doing, Sister Nakia? Let's just say that Shabbat is supposed to be on Wednesday. And so we were like, hey, Shabbat's coming up, Shabbat Shalom, right? And we would do that Tuesday, right, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern New York time. And so we'd be like, hey, you know, Shabbat Shalom. And, you know, normally we would think of it as Ravai or Wednesday, etc. What is that, miércoles or whatever it is in different places. But we would be like, oh, okay, here's Wednesday coming, but we say, here's Shabbat. Can you get off of work? Can you get off your job? Are you in a position where you could say, okay, I'll go ahead and take Wednesday off? We couldn't really do that. So it would be not only, it wouldn't be a domain where it'd be wise for me to have you guys do that and therefore say, hey, put that before and then you get kicked out and I don't have any money to put in your pocket when you ain't working. Real talk, right? It would not only be wise for that, but it also wouldn't be something that the Most High is going to hold you to. You know, He's not going to hold you accountable, all right, for that because you're not in a system. You're in a land of captivity. See how when you hear people say that, a lot of people, I don't even think a lot of people comprehend that. When you hear somebody say, "But you're in the land of captivity," so don't worry about this and blah blah, because you're not going to be able to do that. People say, "Well, in faith and blah blah." There's certain things you can't do till you're not in the land of captivity. So when you hear somebody say that from now on, know that that's what they mean. It's like, hey, we would do blah, 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 but we're in a land of captivity. It's just like, hey, I would do stuff that are just for the children and we do some lies and blah, blah, but a lot of y'all still got to deal with school. So if you got to deal with school and you're not homeschooling and this and that or whatever, how can I just say, yo, yeah, we're going to meet up Thursday, have your children on at noon, right? Is your child going to get in trouble if on Thursdays at noon they keep skipping their class or whatever? Would that be wise of me to do? No. It would not. Now, when we're outside the land of captivity, and if there are people who decide to bring children with them, and as we continue to develop land and build schools and do things like that, then if people want to come on and do that, then it's wise for me to do that. You know, is it wise for me to say, this is something that messes with me when people say we're going to afford, like there have been people who have came and contacted me and been like, is it okay if we send you only this amount of money a week? And I'm like, what? But come to find out, see, because I wasn't born and raised in the church. So come to find out, that's something people do, where it's like, you better give this much. And if you really love the Lord, you give this. And you got the tithe, you got the tithing line, and then you got the line for $500, and you have the line for $2,000 that people do in services. And I don't know anything about that. That's not my culture. Even when I got into stuff, I never accepted that. So since it's not my culture and it's not who I am, and it's not whose I am, I don't do that, right? But if somebody comes to me with that or whatever, I gotta comprehend. Well, like for me, I get weirded out because I'm like, why would they even do that? Then I realize, oh, you know what? Like that's because that they're still not out of the land of captivity. They might have gone to a church service, but that church service is very much so trying to keep them captive. So, there's a lot of stuff that goes with that. I know that's not really where Minister Tamara was actually focusing, but that kind of took us to another place. They close the doors when the collection plates come out. Can't go in or out. You know what? Yeah, most deaf. And it's weird. Like when I first started seeing that happen, I was like, that's odd. Because I used to be somebody that was like, hey man, I might have to go to the job. Right. I might not be able to stay here. But I'd have to put that into my thing. Because I would literally be timing and thinking about the pastor, and I'd hear him hooping and stuff like that. And I'd be like, okay, that's what, like certain people would get up when the hooping would happen because they're like, I'm not gonna stay here for 20, 30 minutes while we got an extra line for this and an extra line for that. And I'm not mad, like that's just they're taking on a different culture. That's just not our culture. But yeah, that's something that people do all the time. Yeah, we're in the land of captivity, so it's definitely difficult. Shabbat is Saturday. Basically, we use Saturday as Shabbat. We put Shabbat in there, just like we would say Aravai, or instead of Wednesday, or what is it, Hareshon instead of Sunday, or um, you know, Shlai instead of Tuesday, or Shai instead of Friday, whatever the case might be. But Shabbat is basically used for our Saturday because that's what we can do. When we have more, we have an opportunity, but we have something where we can do where it allows people to treat it. And even Shabbat in and of itself, a lot of stuff that we kind of might even go overboard or underboard, if there's such a word, with such things or whatever. He said, I'm tired of this Babylonian nonsense world, sold everything without a clue how it works, no culture. Yeah, very true. Oh, thank you, Perfectly Imperfect. Yeah. And I'm behind on Patreon stuff. That's another thing with all this traveling. That's another thing I'm saying. Like, I literally might just need to take a break from some of the class stuff. Literally just to, and maybe I have a schedule full of just talking to people this week and stuff. I might have to take a break just because, or just like maybe see if I can move some stuff to next week. Some of it I can't, but just because like my family, we need personal stuff to take care of too, and a lot of stuff, and then this traveling, and then emotionally, you deal with the funeral, a lot of stuff pops up with that, even if it wasn't my emotions, but it's taking on other emotions, and it's just it's a lot. And then YLP 83 has just popped up to another level. It's just a lot going on. So once again, y'all pray for me. We'll make sure that we send out a message to everybody in a little bit to let them know what's going on. But yeah, I'm hanging in there. How people say you're hanging in there. It's one of those times I can definitely say I'm hanging in there. You heard a lot of different things. Yeah. So the books and resources that we have. Okay, so this is interesting. See, it used to be TikTok was messed up where it reversed everything, so I had to think reverse when I was looking at you guys' comments. Now it looks like it's going in order again. So I think I've been answering everybody's stuff backwards now. You said you always thought that was weird too, as far as closing the door. Yeah, no problem needed. Yeah. So, and if you look at the culture too, by the way, this isn't the question that was given or was asked. And by the way, if you're on the podcast, looks like it's about to kick us off. We're at our 2-hour limit. So feel free to join us on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. We thank you so much for being on with us. We appreciate you. But if you look at all that stuff, man, like it also helps you when you know the culture to get away from certain things. And look, I love, as you guys can tell, uh, much of the time. I'm sorry. I, he's the person that was on that got hit. You talking about the person that got hit or what? Uh huh. All right. I don't even have cash. For real, for real. If you have a, yeah. Uh, okay, well, I'm doing a live session right now. If you wanna write something, or I don't even know if I got a pen or something. I'm not trying to put your stuff out in public or anything like that. But yeah, but I'm doing it right now. That's what I'm saying. I'm on on right now. Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, but yeah, give me, but yeah. So when we're talking about these things, you have to realize that so when we're talking about these things, you have to realize that you're speaking on a so you got to understand it, like when we're talking about this stuff and we're talking about worship and Sunday worship and all these different things like that, like you'll hear people say, and I'm very Afrocentric myself, as you guys know, but you hear people saying all this stuff about they got the sun, that's why they say that Christ is the sun. Like you'll hear people say stuff like that, right? Christ is the sun and Christ is this and Christ is that, and that's the problem, and that's the reason why the man is messing us up, and blah blah, the white people do this and blah blah. And we got to understand that the sun was always the sun worship. They got it from Ra. And then if you understand Ra and how Ra is this, and it's like, okay, I get you that we need to make sure we come back to ourselves. I'm with you on that. But to act like that we didn't have a culture outside of, it's always weird when we use this, and I'm using the social construct white, right? When we use this term white, and we'll say white people don't have culture, which is very much so not true at all. There are a lot of things that we attribute to whites that aren't white, but it doesn't mean they don't have any culture whatsoever. Nevertheless, like when people say, this is white culture, or this is that, this is this is that, whatever, um it's always interesting that somebody doesn't recognize that, like, you're actually taking away your African culture. So when you hear somebody talking about the sun and how it's the same as Sunday and things of that nature and things like that, and thank you, Sister Cherise, appreciate the love. It's like, do you really recognize what you're talking about? Like, do you really comprehend that, like, we didn't use the word sun for Sunday? So you're talking about somebody else who took what we had and applied it to their stuff, right? Like day in Avra is Yam. That's why you have words like Yom Kippur, but also it'd be Yom Shabbat, it'd be Yom Rashan, it'd be Yom Ravai, whatever one you're using, right? It'd be Yom Shlashai, right? All these terms, like Yom is talking about, if you're talking about the 7 days of creation, it'd be Yom Aleph, right? Yom Bet, Yom Gamal, Yom Dalet, Yom He, Yom Vav, Yom Zion, right? You're talking a different language, but people aren't breaking that down because, once again, they don't know culture. Thank you. So since we're not culturally appropriate, mm, okay. So since it's not culturally appropriate, a lot of people are gonna take something that's not really appropriate for that, and they're gonna try and use it for something else. So they're gonna take something that's not appropriate for that, and they're gonna use it for something else, right? So if we're in the midst of that, and we're in the midst of a culture where that's what's going on, and people are misappropriating the culture, they're trying to get you and I to misappropriate culture, then here we are, we're having arguments and stuff with people where it's not even worth it. So I got somebody who's trying to tell me that, hey, I'm wrong, and I get this all the time, right? You're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, you worshiping that white, That white Jesus is or whatever. All right. So like, so it's gonna be like, don't pay attention to this white Jesus, this is white Jesus, that you ain't, you need to make sure that you're not listening to this white Jesus, blah blah. And it's like, well, there was no such thing as Jesus in my culture. Where who told you there was something, right? You're not talking my culture. You're not even talking your culture. You're not talking Africa. You're not talking West Africa. You're not talking Israel. You speaking on something else, right? And so now when you're speaking on something else, like, what else, what am I supposed to do with that? You want my people to, you're waiting for me to do something else, right? Or the same thing like with the sun. So you're saying Sunday, the sun worship. We didn't say Sunday. We never said Sunday. Matter of fact, if you look at Kemet never said sun. So would you say that I'm stealing from that? Or when somebody will say about Horus, right? And if you've ever heard that, that basically the story of Christ comes from the story of Horus. And if you knew who Horus was, right, and then you would know who Jesus was and stuff like that. And it's like, well, first of all, I'm not worshiping Jesus, I'm worshiping Yahshua. Secondly, Yahshua or even Jesus and Horus story are not the same. Matter of fact, Horus story comes from a horror story because Horus's parents was a zombie or a straight up dead person, so dealing with necrophilia, having sex with a female goddess, and then having him. And then, by the way, he basically got raped by his uncle, and they believe that his uncle could have impregnated him, even though he's supposed to be a he. You see, we have some stuff going on there where it's like you're trying to tell me about this and trying to tell me about the strong masculinity and things of that nature or whatever, right? But you're not in a position. You're not even in a position to really have that conversation with me because you're trying to get me to bow down to a thought process that isn't real, right? You're trying to get me to bow down to a position that's not really real. So if you're trying to get me to bow down to this position and it's not even real, we got a problem. And I'm sorry, somebody was asking me for something, so we're gonna be a blessing to them. All right, now let's go back to our focus. Thank you for your patience. So a lot of this stuff that we're having, a lot of this arguments, a lot of things we're having with people, they're not based off of what our culture actually says about something. It's based off of what somebody else is saying. So even our arguments that we're having within ourselves. Hey, how you doing, Rufus? And so we can't do what we say all the time, which is keep the main thing the main thing. We can't keep the main thing the main thing. We can't. It's impossible for us to do. It's something that it's become a exercise in the incredulous, in things that seem to be stupendous rather than things that should be natural, because people don't even know culturally what's going on. So we're having a conversation, we're having an argument about something that's not even cultural. Yeah, that's wicked. Yeah. So it's very much so. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed what Sister Cherie said. Oh, okay, y'all been having. Okay, I missed the conversation. you know, but that's that's why a lot of us just aren't recognized. Aren't recognized that are even trained to be able to do so. We're not even going to think about a lot of that stuff we just talked about today. It's not as important. It's not considered to be as valuable because once again, it's you don't consider it to be your culture. Once you recognize that you can't talk about the Bible without talking about these things, where you need to know Hashem, right? You need to know that, and so because you need to know that, because when somebody tells you, "Oh yeah, well it was always about worship of the sun," that's why these Christians are doing whatever. But if you know that Christianity mixes and matches a bunch of different things, deities, netures, gods, goddesses, um, you know, Odin is just Odin gets just as much credit for this. If you know that the temples, the reason why you even say Madonna and Christ child instead of Miriam at Yashvai, right, is because that Their Madonna was a goddess that already had a child, and she had a temple built. And so they did this a lot, where they just said, "Hey, we got temples built already. Instead of tearing down all the temples and starting from scratch, can't we just go ahead and just say, hey, this temple now is, instead of it being the temple of Zeus, this is the temple of Jesus. Instead of this is the temple of Apollos, this is gonna be the temple of Yahweh. And if this is, instead of this being the temple of Madonna and child, can it just be the temple of Mary and Christ child, or Madonna and Christ child?" That's how you have all this stuff together, right? And so, like, that's why people still use this language today. We're not aware of it culturally, right? How you doing, Ken? We're not aware of what's going on culturally, so we miss all that, but we don't recognize, like, this stuff has always been there. You're just speaking culture. You're speaking the same thing. So that's why wisdom, we got to have these pillars of wisdom there to make sure that we're protected. Oh, no problem. Thanks for being on with us, 8 to 8. So that's why it's necessary and it's important and it's vital for us as a community to make sure that we're doing what we're doing. So thank you all for being on. I mean, unless there's any other questions, comments, or concerns, I don't see any others on here on any other platforms. Thank you. I saw a few of you came over from the podcast and jumped on with this on other platforms. Confusion was always a part of oppression. I'm on, right? And what's more confusing, right, than your own? Once again, the second horseman. See, we've been the same. You see how the same. So this is why we, even to a place where I feel like I'm irritatingly doing so, but this is why we get to a place to where we have to recognize and realize and evaluate that repetition is very important, because we haven't had this as culture. If you had this in your culture from a child, you would have did this every day. You would have sang songs about this every day. You would have said Psalm 119 every day. You would have known 15 steps, Psalm 120 to 134 every day, right? But it's important. Like, that's why we've been saying Revelation chapter 6 verses 3 and 4 a lot. Remember that the goal is to get you to what? To not be at peace. And once you're not at peace, you start fighting each other. Deuteronomy 28. Start around verse 45. Don't even say, you can start at verse 15, sure, but start around verse 45 and keep on going. And you'll see that when men are not prepared, they don't know their culture, it says that they start fighting each other. And then when women, therefore, are not prepared, because the men that's supposed to be the protectors don't have a environment set for them to be able to relax, so they're always in an unprepared mode. Like Willie Lynch said, we'll have them in a perpetual state of fear, where now all of a sudden they have to be the strong, independent Black woman. Now all of a sudden they'll start being unprepared, and they'll start fighting each other and fighting the men, and the men will now start fighting them. And now what happens? Then they look at the children, and so do the men. And now all of a sudden they're doing this wild thing against each other. That's why Malachi chapter 4, right after Malachi 3, talks about Yeshua coming and John the Baptist coming and making sure your tithes and offering all that straight. It doesn't end with your tithes and offering. That's the only thing we get out of Malachi for whatever reason. But Malachi chapter 4, verse 6, at the end, it says that the hearts of the fathers had to return to the children, and the hearts of the children had to return to the fathers. If fathers and mothers and children are not in their proper place, we're gonna be messed up. Willie Lynch said that. He said, this is what we're going to use to keep the separation. If we can get these people to keep fighting against one another, they won't even think about it. And here you are, not even realizing, here's people of Kemet who are saying, or people are saying that they take on Kemetic blood and Kemetic ways and Kemetic religiosity and stuff, and will fight their own Israelite brothers on what they're saying that none of that stuff really matters, and all was Kemet, this and that, or whatever, and don't want to talk about the fact that Israel and Kemet are the same people. Uh-oh. Right? Kemet and Israel are the same people. You can't talk about Kemet without talking about Israel. You can't talk about Israel without talking about Kemet. You can't do it. You might want to do it, but you can't. Right? Kemet and Israel, that's the same people. They came out with each other. Excuse me. You can't have one without the other. Moses learned how to write in Kemet before he developed writing for Israel. Right? Kemet, if you read the Bible and read throughout history, used to go up and fight on behalf of Israel when Babylon and others would try to come through and take over. Israel came back down to Kemet. Yashrai hid in Kemet. Israel was going all the way over to Nubia. Right? A little further down. than Kemet. That's Cush. Was going into the land of Cush, right? Going into all these places. We don't know. We don't know these things. Right? And since we don't know these things, we just automatically say that they're not there. Or we just believe somebody, and that's the goal, is to get you and I so confused that rather than say, oh, you know what, we're the same, we come from the same thing, we fight each other. Rather than ensuring that we comprehend that we're the same, what do? We fight each other. So the same brothers and sisters, Kemet and Israel, that should be working with each other, we fight each other. The same cousins, if you will, right? Joseph married into Kemet. People came out of Kemet with Israel. The children of Kemet and the children of Israel mixed together, because nobody, not just Israelites, but nobody over the age of 60 except Joshua and Caleb and those family members who would have been attached to them were even allowed to go into the land of Canaan if they were over the age of 60. Right. So that means that everybody who went in there, they were mixed together and weren't even thinking about, they weren't even raised. They were raised with some of the mentality, but they weren't raised as far as, hey, we're over you just because we're Kemet, or you're under us just because you're Israel, or you're this much Kemet versus this much Israel. That's why they put some of those laws in place in there. Because they were trying to get you and I to make sure that we dealt in wisdom. And part of wisdom is making sure that you comprehend that you together in this. The enemy wants you to be split up. If you split up, what will you do? You'll fight each other. If you're not at peace with who you are, you have to fight each other. You have to. That's the way it's set up. Said, why the colonizers forced their religion onto people they enslaved? Because that's what colonizers do at all times. Even like, when they try to be nice, and they try to be like, well, the Mongols let you believe whatever you wanted to believe. The Mongols let you believe whatever you wanted to believe, as long as you were going to still bow down to them. So you still, in essence, had to put their gods above yours, right? Their needs before yours. They'll be like, well, Alexander the Great, one of the great things is he allowed you to take a little piece of this and a little piece of that, and a little piece of that, and put them together, but you still had to be underneath him, and he would put himself as a deity, or as a god, a deist, they would have called it, and he would have put it in everybody else's pantheon, right? If they had multiple netures or whatever, so we have a lot of people who say this stuff, but that's what it is. That's part of when you take over anything. That's why what's the first thing that you're going to do? We talk about this all the time, how important women are to your culture and your community. If you're going to have somebody gentrify in town, what do? You make sure that you build a Starbucks. You make sure you build a Walmart. You make sure you put a Wawa somewhere. You make sure you put a Toys R Us somewhere. Well, Toys R Us ain't nothing anymore. Dang, I was about to say KB Toy Store. I'm talking about old school stuff. I don't even know that stuff exists anymore. But you got to put, you got to put it. Well, it doesn't anymore, I guess, right? But you got to put, stuff like that. You got to put a rainbow. You have to put a Target or Target, right? Somewhere you have to put that stuff there, because that's how you do it. You take what the woman's needs are. She's the one that gives birth to the children, is the one that's going to have to make sure that whatever the instruction is of the father, she's going to be the one who lays down the law. She's the one that is going to be really having the domain of wisdom. She's going to be the one that runs the domain. So anything that's wise that comes in and out is going to be mainly because she allows it in or out. So you make sure that you set her up. And so you give everything you can. And that includes, but it's coming from a culture. So people think that the Bible is the same religion, but the Bible is used for religion. See, the Bible has a religion that goes with it. It's called the Kingdom of Heaven. It's called Followers of the Way. It's called Israelites. I mean, it is what it is. And those who want to be grafted into Israel. That's what the Bible talks about from beginning to end. It's not everybody's culture. What people do with the Bible is they say, we're going to take a little bit of this, and we're going to say we're going to use this, and we're going to take some of this. And then if somebody says, we're not using a lot of this over here, why aren't you using this stuff? Because this stuff is actually what's supposed to be there too. Then we say Nicolaitan doctrine. That's Old Testament. Or even if it's in their New Testament, they'll say, well, that really is not what we're about, because even though it says it's a New Testament, the New Testament has this one verse that says something that I can use to say that there's no such thing as law. Even though I got to be judged by something like law in Revelation, but Revelation, that's why they even start saying, well, you know what? Technically, there's a New Testament, then there's an Old Testament, then there's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and then there's Revelation, because Yahshua talks about their Old Testament too. I don't have an Old Testament. The Bible says that there's only one testament, but for them, they want New Testament, Old Testament off the Nicolaitans doctrine. So once again, it comes back to culture. It comes back to where we are, but that's everywhere that you go. So a lot of people will make this bad mistake where they say, like for example, they'll say that the Bible or something else is the white man's religion, and it's like that the Bible actually existed before the Council of Nicaea, thousands of years before Christ would have been born. There's geographical evidence that it was there. Like if you actually realize there's a mistranslation between Sea of Reeds and Red Sea. If you go to the Sea of Reeds, you can find proof that there actually was a group of people that got swallowed up by the sea. Like if you look at people that we mentioned a lot, like Oluwado Equiano, and see his autobiography, wrote about himself, to where he read the Bible for the first time after being captured as a slave as a child, and then realized that as a child he was actually an Israelite because they kept all the traditions and customs, and therefore said, I'm an Israelite. So before there was this, what you guys think is a new Israelite movement, there were people learning about themselves and being like, oh yeah, we were always that. Before somebody called it Nigeria, those people called themselves and people before that called them, we're calling them Igbo. And so they called themselves Igbo because Igbo actually came from something when people were calling them Hibo. Hibo was something because that they called them because the people called themselves Ifrit originally, but people knew that the Ifrit were Hebrews, so they called them Hibo. And so now all of a sudden Hibo, Ifrit came from Ifrit. Ifrit is Avra. Avra is what the original people called Hebrew called themselves. But if you don't know how to link that up, then you can't have a wise discussion about it. You can have a discussion, but it's not going to be based off of the actual interpretation. And there's only one interpretation. There are many applications, but there's always going to be one interpretation. You said this showed up in your feed twice. All right, amen. That's great. So, a lot of people are up there talking about the Red Sea, and we can't find any proof in the Red Sea, and the Red Sea is dead. And why would they even go into the Red Sea? And the Red Sea is too long to be able to cross. And it's like, yeah, it never was the Red Sea. That's somebody else tried to read your culture, misread it, misquoted, misrepresented. And now, like, a lot of us still to this day don't even know that it was never the Red Sea. So when you read, that's what I was saying. So it doesn't matter what version of the Bible you're reading. If that Bible is going to say Red Sea, then it doesn't matter. It's still going to be wrong. If you read a Bible that says Sea of Reeds, then you might say, oh, okay, well, the interpretation's right. But once again, culture before even the version. So if you comprehend the culture, every time you read Red Sea from now on, you will say in your head, that's not the Red Sea, that's the Sea of Reeds. Like every time I see Lord God, I know that that's not Lord God, that's Yahweh Elohim. Or every time I see firmament, that's a Greek God. So it's not firmament, it is actually Lakia. Or if every time I see Jesus, I know that Jesus didn't even exist at the time of the Bible was born there. As far as the name itself doesn't even exist. And the letter J doesn't exist. Therefore, it would be Yesus, Yesu, but even Yesu, Yesus, it still was Yashva before that, or Amanal, or Emmanuel, right? When you have the culture together, right, the domain. See, when you have your culture is helping you your domain. When you build a home based off of your culture, your domain. The brownstones look the way that they do because brown folk built them that way, right? There's a culture behind that. Now, a bunch of other people might live in that and be trying to tell you this is where they are. Maybe their parents lived here and therefore it's there. No. Like, that's still your culture. That's still brown people that built them brownstones. The brownstones, by the way, that are in Philly, in DC, in New York City, even a little bit in Boston, right? To show where your people even spread to and where they came out of and how big an influence they had in Washington, DC as well, right? Like, huge influence over that. Yeah, Christianity mixes Kemetic science and Roman Catholicism. The legacy of colonized region is for the enslaved to unlearn and see truth of Yahweh. So that's all I've read them to do, is that their culture. I don't remember what part I'm talking about, Sister Sharice. I'm sorry. I'm not sure which part you're talking about. You said you put a Panera Bread and the Macy's in there? Yep. You just so oh okay, okay. So does that mean their culture is to colonize and enslave? So once again, you have to look at culturally what's going on. So that's why I said that I'm very careful to not say, once again, using the social construct white, that all white people have no culture, that all white people do the same thing to everybody. If you look at the culture of Irish people, for example, Irish people have fought beside black people. Um, you know, I won't say all the time. You can't make a sweeping statement that all of them do, but understand that like Irish people were the beginning. Like there are a lot of people that will say the Irish, and really I think it's mostly the Irish that say this, but nevertheless, a lot of people will say the Irish were practice on what they did to black people all over the world. The Irish people were the first slaves. Now they don't even come out and call themselves slaves. Matter of fact, they try not to because they only want to be known as indentured servants. But the reality is like they came there, they pillaged their women, they raped their women, they took their land. Matter of fact, there's still English presence in Ireland, like people don't know the difference between England and Britain or Great Britain, right? England is the little island. Great Britain is any territories that they have. And people think Great Britain is giving up territories, but England is a little island. Great Britain was the place that was the empire that went all over the place. And they still have colonies outside of the ones that I'm about to mention too, but they still have colonies because Great Britain still has Scotland. Great Britain still has the Wales. Great Britain still has Northern Ireland. And by the way, the Irish people, because the people in Northern Ireland either don't identify as Irish anymore, or they are white people from England that came over there and said, we're going to go ahead and take over. So, like in Northern Ireland, they have this place called Londonderry. That's what they changed the name of the city to when they took over. But the people in Ireland, the rest of Ireland call it Freederry because they want Ireland to be free and all theirs again, right? But if you don't know that, you'll just be like, oh, okay, yeah. So Ireland just was always out here doing this. No, but the Irish are people who had fought for black rights too because they hated oppression. The Irish people, Frederick Douglass, when Frederick Douglass became free and started speaking and stuff like that, he had to actually run away from the United States of America for a while. He went to England, but a little known fact, he went to Ireland and lived there for a little while. So he went to, Muhammad Ali, when nobody would listen to him in America, went over to Ireland and spoke, you know, and had some of his most famous speeches that you hear when you hear him speak. And even though they didn't fully comprehend, and they would tell him he was wrong on certain things he was saying, trying to say he was racist and stuff for some of the stuff, they at least heard him and gave him a right to be able to speak and had actual conversation with them. Not every Russian is matter of fact. There are Russians that are racist in other ways, but don't dislike black people because they have Pushkin, right? Alexander Pushkin. Alexander Pushkin is the one I was talking about earlier, who's the grandfather of Gannibal. Gannibal was a slave that was taken from Nigeria, and he was a prince. He ends up being put in the court to be a friend to, I can't remember the name of the emperor at the time, but the emperor of Russia. He becomes like his son's slave, but then his son and him become friends. Then he actually like adopts him in as a son because he recognized the talent and the gifts and all that stuff. And Gannibal goes out there and in the name of Russia basically like lays waste to people, protects things. People actually got afraid he was going to have so much power he would become an emperor. They didn't want a black emperor, so they actually kind of ostracized him towards the end of his life. But basically, his grandson is Alexander Pushkin. Alexander Pushkin considered to be one of the greatest writers of all time, if not the greatest. Some people would say he's definitely considered to be the greatest writer in Russian history, and they won't even debate that over there. Like, no, he's it, and and he helped develop their language. So we had this weird thing. Now, does that mean England did not have a lot of racism? Sure, England did that. But to say that all of them, right, were doing the same thing. Matter of fact, even places like Belgium. Belgium was a place where they were all right for a while, but then the royalty there, Leopold the First, wanted to be able to do what other cultures were doing, which was carving up parts of Africa. He really couldn't get it done, but his son Leopold II is the one that goes and does evil in the Republic of Congo, this place that was left over. They found some rubber there, and they decided to go over there. But the people didn't necessarily believe that black people were bad people. They weren't even involved in the African stuff, so they didn't really care about it like that. But he took all the soldiers and sent them back to boot camp, put them underneath a business. He basically said the Republic of Congo was his and made it a business, a false corporation. That's what you do, right? He made it a corporation, which is how he got control of it. Just like United States is a corporation, but United States of America is the real thing. But the Republic of Congo, even though it wasn't called that at the time, was the real thing. and he made a corporation and basically named it something different, sent his soldiers that were actually belonging to the country, sent them, said, I'll pay you again out the corporation's pockets, sent them to boot camp again, taught them that black people were not in fact human beings. He said, you're going to find these people, they're going to look like human beings, they're going to speak like human beings, they're going to have emotions, they're going to cry, but they're not. Trained them to do that for months, and then sent them over there and had them commit some of the worst atrocities on the planet, right? So, once again, Willie Lynch even taught that not only do you have to teach black people that they're inferior, but you have to teach white people to agree with that. And he said you can never miss an opportunity to do so. If you miss an opportunity that you had to tell somebody that a black person ain't nothing and that a black person ain't even a person, he said you're going to mess up this whole thing. So, it's not in everybody's culture or everybody's nature, but it is a very high cultural thing. You got to understand the French, the English, the Russians, the Prussians, the Portuguese, all these people, the Scottish. These were all people that would marry into each other. All the royalty were cousins, right? So cousins were marrying cousins, which is why they did some crazy things too. But cousins were always marrying cousins, keeping the wealth and stuff within the family. And so basically you had the same people rule all these different countries, which means that all these different countries are influenced by the same culture, which means now we have a problem, right? So, and by the way, it happens in Africa too. Let's not forget that you have Papa Doc gives birth to Baby Doc. Go look at Papa Doc and what he did to Haiti. Look at what his son tried to do, and look at why they had to hem his son up and eventually lock his son up and kill his son, if I remember correctly, like kill his son, to be able to say, hey, like we're going to show everybody we're not going to allow this same thing that says we're going to dominate you guys and use European weapons and stuff to be able to kill off our own people. We're going to kill this off now. Now they're still not perfect, but you're still dealing with a lot of that stuff that's why Haiti's still having some of those issues. Or look at Jamaica. Jamaica's not even allowed to this day, technically, to where you can't even build a hospital in Jamaica without getting permission from England, even though they'll tell you Jamaica's been free since what, the 60s or 70s? But Jamaica's not free. Jamaica's not free at all. If you can't even build a hospital for your people, they won't even allow them to build hospitals for their people. There's not enough hospitals. Excuse me. You can't even buy land. Think of it like DC. You can't buy land in DC. You can buy property, but you can't buy land. That's two different things. So it's a lot. So yeah, I mean, but is there a lot of culture that you can say now has become white, which really is Eurocentric, but that culture still permeates. That's how you can have Kanye West, who is lauded and applauded for doing this, but he was never about, if you look at who he was never about black people per se. He was about making sure that he got free and he was financially taken care of. So that's his whole thing. If you bow down and kiss his ring, he's got your back. But he don't care about you as a person. He didn't care about you as a people. And it's sad because that's obviously what his mom didn't want. It's not what his mom taught him. Yeah, you can build them all too, right, Sister Barbara? So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in there. At one time, the Irish were described as swarthy. In all honesty, everybody at some time would have been described as swarthy. Dark skin. Because basically, like what's happened now is you have people that are less melanated or people who've gotten together with people that are less melanated. If you have if people that don't come together, it's like in a matter of 2 years, if people really wanted to. I'm not saying people should do this. I'm just saying in a matter of 2 years, if you really wanted things to go back to the original, all you would do is you would just have basically, well, I guess you can't say 2 years. 2 years, you could have already on track something where it would take 2 generations, where you could have in other words, you could have a group of children that are born, where basically they were born to people that were extremely dark-skinned or dark-skinned enough to where like you would have it. And then if you wanted to go back, if you wanted to basically undo 500, 600 years or so of people, or 700, 800,000 years, even 2,000 years, but really Greeks back then and 2,000 years ago looked like black people, right? What we would consider black. But if you wanted to just go back, like basically within 2 generations, but that's us doing eugenics. We don't need to do eugenics. We don't need to do what they did to the Aboriginal people and bred them out or something like that. It's not my goal to change the system. It's my goal to make sure that we have a system for ourselves and that we can love and honor and tolerate people. And that way, shoot, if you're whatever you want to call yourself, white, less melanated, whatever, reddish, um, orangish. I don't care what you want to call yourself, yellow, whatever, you know, less brown. I don't know. I've heard a lot of different people say a lot of different things jokingly or being a hundred with it. But whatever you want to call yourself, address yourself as, um, after a certain point, what you need to do is you need to just do your best at a certain point. You say, okay, I'm gonna go and I'm good, if we live around people that are like-minded, that's more so going to be the importance of it. The rest of the stuff is going to settle itself out. The color is important as far as if you're trying to identify Israel, because it's part of how we identify ourselves. I don't care what anybody says. I don't see color. Okay, true. You don't see color. All right, bro. You don't see color. Let's just say that's a fact. So if your baby was born, let's say you white, you say you don't see color. All right, bro. Your white wife and you have a child, but your baby come out looking my color. You just gonna love that baby, no questions asked, no DNA tests. I mean, you might, and praise y'all if you did. I'm just telling you, I'd be a little question. If I was sitting there in the delivery room and supporting y'all, and I saw that baby came out and he looked like he was my skin color, and I looked at you, I looked at her, I'd be a little, I'd be a little quiet, to say the least, right? I'd be a little, I'd just be sitting there kind of like thinking to myself, I might need to leave and go somewhere because this probably ain't gonna turn out to be a great thing. That's if you stayed around and I wasn't chasing you out the room to see if you were all right. Okay. So that's the reason why we say color matters, because it's something that shows your culture. It shows who you are. It shows where you come from. When somebody says, I don't see your color, what you're telling me is you don't see my culture. And that's why I have a problem with it. Right. If you see me, then see all of me. Be okay with all of me. This live is saved. Yeah, we have a YouTube channel. You go on the YouTube channel, look up hashtag Find Kofi, hashtag FIND, my name up here, Kofi, KOFI. And you'll be able to find it on YouTube. Matter of fact, if you look up hashtag Find Kofi on any platforms we're on, if you Google it, etc., you'll be able to find it. Thank you, Humble. Is that about thumbs or themes? I don't even pronounce that right. Is it thumbs, themes, toms? I'll be forgetting. But yeah, so you said, why were the Irish used as overseers and police force majority? Well, that's something that happened after the fact, right? And by the way, that's not all the Irish either. So it's not as simple as that. Once again, like, we're trying to do the thing where we find a way to fight against each other. Now, I'm not saying that every Irish person has been, somebody that we should make sure that we recognize as who I'm talking about. But to act like every Irish person came over from Ireland and began to do that, that's not how it matter of fact, here's a great thing to look up: the Isle of Montserrat, or the island of Montserrat. Montserrat spelled Montserrat. Look up the Isle of Montserrat, the island of Montserrat. It is a place to where the people that live there, if you look at them first glance, they basically look like black folk. But if you look at the cuisine, things like they're doing, you'll be like, well, wait a minute. Interesting. Some of this stuff is not African cuisine. Some of this stuff seems to be Irish cuisine. And then you look at some of the stuff that they do. Some of their dances are very much so tribal African dances. But then you start looking, you go, wait a minute. Some of that stuff is Irish dances. And if you look at their stuff, they sing Irish hymns. When they have their church service, they sing African hymns, but they also sing Irish hymns. Right? The reason why is because that a lot of Irish people and black people were put in the same situation. Now, Irish people might have came over as indentured servants, even though some of them were slaves first. But right, the ones I'm talking about now at this time frame, they might have came over as indentured servants. You have black people that were slaves. The Irish people were like, well, they're not even being treated like human. They actually fought together. The Irish and the black people fought together. They started fighting together. A lot of these slave rebellions, we don't give any credit to the Irish at all. I'm not saying it was all of them, but there was a period of time where a lot of them were Irish and black people coming together to say that we need to be treated correctly. Now, the Irish people, even as being indentured servants, sometimes they'd be treated just like slaves anyways. So they were in essence saying we both get treated the same, even if we have different titles, might as well fight together. Nevertheless, we fought with one another and fought for freedom. What happens is that, now let's be real about this part too. You had the Irish people who were closer to looking white, and you had black people who obviously weren't. The white people on top, the one percenters, or the 1% come to the Irish people and they say, look, you guys look closer to us anyways, and this is what we're spitting to everybody, this is what we're teaching everybody. So this is what we're going to do. We've been telling you guys that white people are better than black people and Irish people, but maybe we made a mistake. Maybe you guys have shown us that you guys are closer to white people than we thought. We'll let you be free, and we'll let you even look for land and things like that and try to get on your feet. Maybe we'll even give you some land and we'll teach you how to use the land and stuff. But don't get it twisted. You're going to be poor white trash, but it'll be better than being slaves. And maybe it means you'll become slaves, or you'll get slaves and things like that, but you'll be better than slaves. You'll be indentured servants, but only through the contracts that we have when you work for our businesses, our corporations. What do you say? That's basically what was presented to them. And a lot of them, if not all of them, made a decision that, you know what, we'd rather just go ahead and, as a family, take care of our family, make sure that we're free. Sorry, black people, we love you, we honor you, but we're not really, we're allies in this. Allies, you sign a contract, a treaty, but you ain't willing to die, right? Some Irish people did say, though, we'll die. Or some Irish people did say, you know what, we're done with this or whatever. And you know what they did? They put them in the same breeding camps that they put black people in to teach them a lesson, right? I can speak to in my family, right? In my family, on my wife's side, that there's an Irish man who married a black woman. Both of them were together. They moved away from everybody. White people found out about it. They came to attack them or whatever. They end up killing the black wife, and they say, hey, let them black children just end up out here by themselves. If we get them, we get them, whatever. But if you want to live, you're gonna leave them alone. Your wife's already dead. We're gonna come back and get you. He moves a little further, if I remember the story correctly, or stays in the same place, whatever, but basically stays there, raises the children, and then dies, is killed because he raised the children, but the children were old enough to where they could survive and continue the bloodline going down. So there's a lot more of that happens than what we know. Now, does that mean that there weren't Irish people that once again took white and then started taking it seriously and then turned around and said to us the very thing that MLK told us was cruel, which was pull yourself up by your own bootstraps? We did it, not realizing that white people made you white so that you could go ahead and now be in a position to tell us to pull ourselves up by our own bootstrap when they gave you the land and they taught you how to use it and they gave you money and they told you to bring Irish people over and make them white. And as long as they acted what they said white was, that you can go ahead and be white too. So now, and by the way, people in Ireland don't even mess with people who are, Irish. They don't even like to mess with people that are Irish American, or at least say they are, because a lot of Irish Americans don't even know if they're Irish American or not. But the people that say they are, they don't like them at all. You know why they don't like them? Because they say, look, man, we fought against oppression and we still oppressed over here. And we're not cool with oppression in any way, shape, or form. And even though we were slaves, we don't even like to be called slaves because we don't want anybody to compare us to the slavery of the people we fought with. And by the way, they still fight West African battles to this day. People don't even know about. Still over in West Africa, giving Irish blood. Any man that's going to spill his blood with me is all right. Now, you have some people that became police officers, and they decided to go ahead and be, sick people on us. But remember, there used to be a sign, in England and in America, no black. What was it? No blacks, no Irish, no dogs. Right then, America ended up changing that to no blacks, no Mexicans, no dogs. Right, but they used to have a whole thing: no blacks. No Irish, no dogs. They consider us all to be dogs. And there's tons more stories we could talk about. We could talk about in Texas how people knew that that black Mexicans and that black Americans were going to end up dying, and the Irish people could have left out and said, hey, we fought with you guys, but you guys are going to die. And they said, no, we're going to sit here. They died with us. I mean, there's tons of stuff we could talk about. You're talking about in Canada when there were Irish people that were willing to try and fight Canadians, trying to make sure the black people got free. You can talk about how, I don't know if he's Irish or Welsh, so forgive me if I'm off, but the gentleman named Cassius Clay. Cassius Clay, I think he's Welsh. I might be wrong on this, but but Cassius Clay, the original Cassius Clay, not Cassius Clay turned into Muhammad Ali. Cassius Clay was named after the original Cassius Clay. The original Cassius Clay was a guy that would fight you with a knife if you wanted to talk trash about black people. Like he was somebody who was not just an ally, like he was willing to die. There's a whole story about how somebody stabbed him in his guts. He somehow survived it, but while being in all that pain and everything, still won the knife fight against a whole bunch of people. And then basically was spitting on him, talking trash about him, saying how, yeah, like, you know what, you say something about black people again, right? And you'll end up like them. Right. So it's I don't want to do the thing of like it's like all of them became, but yeah, there's a story behind it. They had to be taught that oppression was cool, just like we had to be taught that being oppressed was cool. They had to do it together, right? And Martin Luther King Jr. said it's a cruel joke to tell a man to pull himself up by his own bootstrap when he doesn't even have a boot. The Irish people were at least given boots, right? We didn't even get boots. We just got straps. We just got laces. And then somebody said, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and stuff. But it's like, how am I supposed to tie, boots without the boot? It doesn't make sense. You said, I'm from Jamaica, living in America. We tell them, but the people don't know and don't want to know. Yeah, true. Said they can't just leave the country in Jamaica, often have to go through England, through the beast system. There's a lot of that. So Trinidad, KTS, I forget what KTS is, but basically has the same illusion we're under, independent. Swarthy means melanated. Well, now swarthy would mean melanated. They weren't talking about melanated. They were just saying my straw man name that I use, or it's not even my straw man name really, but my name I use for business is a name that actually, for some business things that I'm trying to do. And when I don't want somebody to look at the African name, and I want them to look at, just doing business and they haven't seen me yet, the name that I use, it actually means swarthy poet. So swarthy poet basically just kind of means brown poet. But yeah, we know that brown people would be melanated, most definitely. Except Berber, original brown and red people who lived in Iberian Peninsula. Oh, okay, what about the black Aboriginals of Ireland? Weren't they massacred? Some of that did. Some of that happened, but it's not as simple as that either. But there's some of that happened, sure. By the way, there's even like when you see, like I said, it's a lot more to go into. Even when you talk about that, for example, like that there are Irish people that won't call black people black. You know why they won't call black people black? They won't call you black because they'll call you blue. You know why? Because they understand that there were black blue people. And they also understand that in their language and their culture that black, not based on skin, but just what we consider the color black to be, was something that's tied to the devil. So they don't even want to consider. So if you talk about Blackpool, they're like, we won't say Blackpool. Blackpool is like the devil's place. So we don't really want to say you're a black person because we're saying you're the devil. So they say, we'll say you're a blue person. Not a black person, but a blue person. Right? So there's a lot, there's a lot there. And yeah, you said you're reading how they got the Irish to switch up. Matter of fact, if you look at even modern, when they did the whole party switch, right? Like people don't even think about the fact that like, literally Donald Trump, and before Donald Trump, wasn't it? It was Ronald Reagan. Both of them did the same thing. Remember, Ronald Reagan ran on Make America Great Again. Donald Trump ran on Make America Great Again. Ronald Reagan was known on TV. Donald Trump was known as TV. Ronald Reagan had a bunch of money. Donald Trump had a bunch of money, et cetera, et cetera. Well, remember, Ronald Reagan actually used to be a Democrat at one point, and then he switched over to Republican. So when people say this, the party switch doesn't make sense, one thing I never hear anybody bring up is like, that Ronald Reagan, the president, before he became the president, he was a Democrat. Then he became a Republican. Right? Like we literally know this stuff happened, but same thing happened kind of with Irish people. Like the party switch caused a lot of people to make a lot of this stuff happen. And so party switches or political switches and things like that over time are saying, hey, we'll give you money, paying off people. A lot of people have a price. Some people say everybody's got their price, and I haven't really gotten that price yet. But I used to be a token, back in high school days and maybe a little bit of my initial military days and things like that, to where I was just trying to fit in again or whatever. And you didn't know any better about certain things and thought, okay, I guess people just make fun of you or whatever, and you're just supposed to take it. But as long as they can take a joke back, even though they never could, right? But it's a lot of that stuff is very interesting, to say the least. There's a lot of stuff that's going on as far as people being all over the place and not living in things. So a lot of it we kind of make very simplistic. But yeah, there's definitely some truth to a lot of people came through and wanted to take over the land. And so there's a lot of people that were there that were black that either had to go away or ended up being killed. Some of them even mixed in, which is why you see Irish people do some very interesting things with their hair or with the way they grow things or even the way that they dance or certain things. If you pay attention to it and you put it with other cultures, you'll see there's a lot of similarities. There's similarities between tap dancing and um, forgive me, I'm forgetting what it's called when Irish tap dancing, but well, actually, I think that's what they actually used to be called, was just Irish tap dancing, but we call it something else now. Um, but yeah, you'll see a lot of similarities. Thank you, Humble Step. Appreciate that. Okay, thank you. Alaikum salam. Um, Alaikum salam, excuse me. Um, Salah, pause and think about it. Yeah, so and you have a blessed day as well, Christine. So, there's a lot of different things. It's my pleasure, Shabbos. There's a lot of different things that we're just not aware of. And Riverdance. Yeah, Riverdance. Thank you. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we're not even aware of, we don't think about, we don't put together. And once again, it's because we've been taught that we're supposed to be separated, we're supposed to be apart, we're not supposed to be on the same page. And so if we're not supposed to be on the same page, why would you even consider this stuff to be something that you would read or contemplate or think about? So it is what it is, though. Thank you so much for everybody for being on. I don't really see, so that was our Q&A for today. Prayerfully, you could say it had to do with wisdom, because our series that we're doing is the 12 pillars of wisdom. We've gone through 8 pillars so far. We'll be back with pillar number 9 tomorrow. I got some very interesting things to talk about as far as these last 4 pillars. Once again, remember that wisdom is a place, a domain in which you put things that are wise inside of. So your domain must be worthy of that which is wise. And what are the 12 pillars that we talked about? We talked about the first pillar. You must put something in systematically and systemic. You must have something that is knowledgeable, or you must be knowledgeable, know it, be intimate with it. You must be a game changer. You must make sure that you are redeemed or reconsidered, or redeem things or reconsider things. How do you deem it? You must make sure that you have vision, purpose, and value. Where are you headed? Vision. What is your purpose? What do I need to do every day to get where I'm headed? And value. How do I value it? What do I put into it to make sure it's valued? Number 6 was etymology, not eteos, which is the truth, or you might say is the definition, but etymology, etymos, etymos, which is saying, where did this come out of? Eschatology, which is not the study of the end times, but it is actually the study of what lasts. Right. And then finally, yesterday we talked about a cultural appropriation. Today was a Q&A session. So we're thankful and grateful to everybody. Once again, if you're on YouTube, well, we actually, Facebook got cut off. The podcast has been off for a little bit. If you're on YouTube, or if you're on TikTok, on YouTube, you can get in touch with us. All the stuff is in the description box with the video already. If you'd like to be able to get in touch with us or see different things we're doing. If you're on TikTok, all you have to do to find out more information about us is just simply go on and go onto our regular page. You can look at where it says bio. We have a little bit of information there. What I would invite you to do as well, though, is go to where it says website. Where it says website, click on the link tree there, right? And then when you click on that link tree, it'll show you all the different platforms, places, things, etc., that you can be able to use to get in contact with us, help us build something similar, find out about classes, things as far as that. I'm just going to say this out loud. I'm gonna pray about it more, but I'm just gonna say it's leaning heavy enough this way. I've been praying. I told you I was praying the whole time about this while we were talking. More than likely, I'm probably gonna need at least a week off of classes, right? And if I don't have a specific day and time with you as far as to call you this week, it's probably not going to happen this week. I need to get my mind right, and I need to get some nutrients back in me, things of that nature. So so we will probably still do the lives. Not probably, we will do the lives at least for the rising sessions. I know we'll at least do the live this evening because we've got our special live for this evening. And no matter where I am, I should be able to make that one happen. Outside of that, though, y'all pray for us and pray for me. No guarantees. We will have the live sessions. We will have the weekly meeting on this Saturday. We will do Shabbat Shalom. Matter of fact, Shabbat Shalom is going to be all of the ministerial staff coming together to talk about leadership. Going to be a nice little round robin discussion. So that'll be a nice little change of pace. Um, you know, anything we need to get through to you guys, I'll try to make sure that I send to those who contact one another. But y'all just pray for me. I think I'm going to need a break. So I'm just going to say classes wise right now, it looks like we'll probably just take a break at least for a week. Been doing a lot of travel. We just lost TikTok for a second. So, but been doing a lot of travel and a lot of things behind the scenes going on. And I'm just not in a position yet to do what's necessary without me taking some time to do it. And so my humanity is something I have to take into account. And that's just what I'm going to do. So y'all pray for me. We'll still be on the lives. If you have a question, comment, concern, if you call me, contact me. I may or may not get back to you. I don't want to say I won't, but it's just going to be a day-to-day. How am I feeling? I think I need to just relax until Monday. So if we don't already have something scheduled as far as one-on-one or something like that, just know we'll probably kick it to next week. Or if you do need to schedule something with me, just know when I get back to you, I'm probably going to be thinking starting Monday at the earliest, if not Tuesday, because usually Mondays I try to have bare minimum stuff going on, so I can kind of use that as like a rejuvenation day and also focus on what needs to be done for the rest of the week in the beginning of the week, so I can kind of have stuff I need less days to work on the rest of the week. Anyways, though, thank you for being on. We appreciate you so much. We honor you. We're on every rising, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're usually on every evening at Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. Thank you so much. As always, we give all honor to the Most High, Elohim, and we're asking for you guys to please make it a point, please, ma'am, please, sir. Study this word. Don't just hear it, but study it to see if it actually makes sense. If it does, the way that we've said, by the way, don't try to be like, oh, well, I try to do this little piece. Don't sprinkle it, right? Don't sprinkle some Jesus on it, right? And act like everything's gonna be okay. Like, look at everything we went through, these things or whatever, meditate on it. These things are recorded as well. If you even have questions, a text or something here and there, even if I don't get to you right away, it doesn't mean that I won't answer. We got other people you can contact too, ministerial staff as well. But study it and then put it in action so that you can actually execute what's said, right? Don't be hearers of the word only. Graduate from hearing it only to doing it as well. Once again, we are thankful and grateful to my wife, the Honorable Maya, and we're thankful for the Most High for him creating such a blessing for me and us as the Honorable Maya. Check her out at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can find her on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest. And other than that, thank you so much. We are removing the leaven from our homes. Did receive a something that we'll have up and posted in the email to everybody very soon concerning things for Passover, the Passover season. Thank you, Minister Tamara, for getting that done. Thank you again, Minister Anais, for the lesson that you gave us not too long ago on Shabbat. We appreciate that. Again, people are still buzzing about what you said on there, and then the early rise of Bible study session that she's going to come back again very soon to be able to do a live session, one of these sessions of the Rising. So we're thankful, Minister Kevin doing things behind the scenes. Those who are calling people, Sister Austral, Sister Cherise, Sister Barbara, Sister Shima, as well as the ministers on staff, Minister Select Sonia, always doing stuff, including making sure that she's getting on me about resting and stuff. Sister Rhonda getting on me about resting and stuff. I appreciate y'all. Y'all are family, and we know we can't do this without you. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. You don't need to have the Patreon to get the Passover information. We don't use Patreon as a means of you better come and pay this money, or else we're not gonna give you anything. Patreon is just a way of you being able to get a little extra, and also helps us to be able to be a blessing to people with stuff we're doing worldwide. So our goal is to get at least 1,000 people on Patreon sooner than later. Once that happens, we know that we got bare minimum 5,000. every month to be able to move and do certain things and grow that can go straight out to what the business of the Most High is, regardless of if people are giving us donations or offering or some of you even get tithes, whatever. We're thankful, grateful to everybody. But I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you so much. I am y'all pray for me. I'm gonna try and rest a little bit. We're gonna get on the road soon. I'm gonna try and rest a little bit just so I can be prepared for that. And in our travels, and then as everybody else is doing what they do, I'm gonna be knocked out in the vehicle. And then pray for young Solomon today as he gets ready to go physically to his kung fu class. He's been doing it virtually for so long. He's finally in the area where he can go back to see his shifu. We're gonna surprise the shifu today and go in there. And he should. It's on him as always. He's got to do what he's got to do. But as far as what I comprehend, as soon as he comes back today and does what he does, which is be excellent in everything that he does, he should be receiving his new belt, if not a few new belts, because he's actually been gone for a while. And when he receives it, we shall rejoice and be exceeding glad and be thankful and grateful for what the Most High is doing in his life as far as discipline in that arena as well. So thank you so much. And if everything goes well, and depending on how we can do it, and if I don't get too many other people's faces in the shots and everything, we might even post it on his YouTube page for everybody as well. So thank you all. We appreciate you. Don't forget, April 15th, right around the corner. Passover, April 11th, April 12th, right around the corner. Selecting the lamb. April 23rd, we need to know by then. Are you coming to meet us October 14th through the 16th? If you want information on where we'll be October 14th through the 16th, just contact us. We'll make sure that we let you know the location. We just don't want to let it out in public as of yet. All right. So thank you so much. We appreciate you all. And as always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ. We are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, in you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family, and talk to you later. Peace. I'm sorry. Somebody had to hit me with that. Oh, somebody got to it. I didn't even read what it was. Well, thank you. It's the end of it anyway. Somebody said if there was a God, they were blah, blah, blah. So, but somebody already got to him. Thank you.